Chapter 9:13. Alex watched with jealousy as Tang Zheng and Princess and danced on the dance floor. Tang Zheng's movements were very rusty, and he couldn't even grasp the rhythm. He was obviously a rookie in Princess and had been guiding him. If it wasn't for her, he would have already made a fool of himself. This made Alex burn with jealousy. You didn't look for a ready-made dance king but chose this brat. Wasn't this just looking for trouble for yourself? Later, when you make a fool of yourself, you will know how unwise your choice was. Tang Zheng's movements attracted the attention of the others. Their lips curled into a faint smile, and they couldn't hide the contempt in their eyes. So this mysterious knight was only so-so. They didn't know why Princess Anne would fancy him. Hiss, and lightly sucked in a breath of cold air, and her mouth slightly twitched. This was because Tang Zheng's foot stepped on her again. Although Tang Zheng was an expert cultivator, it was inevitable that he would make a beginner's mistake. Looking at the burning gazes of the people around him, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. It's okay. It will be fine in a while. I believe in you. Anne's lips curled up. She didn't take it to heart and leaned close to his ear, comforting him in a low voice. A burst of fragrance entered his nose, making him feel relaxed and happy. Her body leaned against him, as if they were close, yet not far. It was exceptionally moving. If it was someone else, they would probably be so excited that they would have a nosebleed. Tang Zheng's breathing was steady. Although there were slight ripples in his heart, he didn't show it. Okay, thank you. Tang Zheng wasn't discouraged. Since you want to see me make a fool of myself, how can I let you do as you wish? Tang Zheng's control of his body and rhythm could be said to be at the level of a master. Although he made a fool of himself at the beginning, his learning speed was extremely fast and displayed his high dancing talent. Anne's eyes lit up. Yes, that's it. You learn quite fast. Tang Zheng smiled. It's all because you taught me well? Of course. And raised her eyebrows and proudly boasted. Their dance steps began to harmonize. Tang Zheng gradually took the initiative, leading and to perform all kinds of beautiful and difficult moves. Immediately, the two of them became the focus of attention. This was not because of Anne's princess halo, but because of their dance. Just now, many people were silently criticizing Tang Zheng for being a rookie and waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Now, it was as if they had swallowed a fly, choking them speechless. Alex's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. What the F***ck is this called not knowing how to dance? Are you playing with me? He became more and more furious, thinking that Tang Zheng was obviously lying to him just now, pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. I will turn you into a real pig. He glared at Tang Zheng hatefully. He had seen many of Anne's suitors, and of course, there was no lack of outstanding ones, but they were all defeated by him and left the scene. He was confident that one day he would be able to carry the beauty home, but halfway through, there was a Chen Yaojin. No, a mysterious knight, and rumors about him with the princess spread like wildfire. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. When he heard that Princess Anne went to Huaxia, he wanted to immediately chase after her, but his family did not allow him to set foot in Huaxia, which made him full of anger. What knight? That was a name given by ignorant people. They had never seen a real knight, so they could imagine the power of a knight. How could this Tang Zheng be compared to the paladin in his family? He was not even worthy to carry her shoes. If Princess Anne's heart was captured by others, Alex might not have such a big reaction. But to be captured by an unknown Easterner, he absolutely could not accept this kind of failure. Looking at the two dancing like a prince and a princess, he clenched his teeth, thinking that the person in the spotlight should be me. He subconsciously clenched his fists, and I will let you know who is your prince, and who is the toad at the bottom of the well. At the end of the song, Tang Zheng and Anne finished with a difficult and classic dance, winning warm applause from the audience. This time, it was heartfelt applause. Although many people did not think highly of this pair, there was no dispute about their dance, so to receive this applause, it was well-deserved. Dance King. Someone gave a thumbs up, and then the others followed. The title of Dance King instantly fell on the rookie Tang Zheng's head. Alex's eyes turned red. This should have been his title, but it was taken away by this brat. How hateful. The two bowed and left the dance floor, but Anne was still holding Tang Zheng's hand tightly, making others envious. She looked at him with a smile, her eyes full of affection, and a faint charming smile appeared on her mouth. You danced so well. This is the happiest and most satisfying dance I have ever danced. You flatter me. Tang Zheng did not care, his eyes searching for Mu Hongyan's figure in the crowd. He was dancing happily here, so he did not want her to have any ideas. I'm going to the bathroom. Tang Zheng did not see Mu Hongyan. His heart moved and left, leaving and looking at his back with burning eyes. The queen came over, looking at her daughter's burning eyes. She could not help but have a headache. Originally, she wanted to take this opportunity to clarify the relationship between the two, but the more she tried, the worse it became. In the eyes of others, the two seemed to be more and more in that direction. The queen just heard a few people whispering that the two were a good match. And mother, and intimately took the queen's arm. Did I dance well? The queen lovingly patted her hand and said, Of course you did well. Hee, Tang Zheng is so good. You don't know that this is his first time dancing. Is it really his first time? The queen's eyes opened wide in surprise. She was like everyone else, originally thinking that the awkwardness at the beginning was deliberately created by the two, but she did not expect that Tang Zheng was really a rookie. Of course, he is good, right? And showed off. The queen did not answer, falling into deep worry. The more outstanding Tang Zheng was, the faster and would fall, which was not a good thing. At this time, Alex came over and persistently sent an invitation to Anne, and faintly smiled and tactfully declined. I'm sorry, I'm tired, I need to rest for a while. Another refusal. Alex angrily roared in his heart, the wind messed up, and his hatred for Tang Zheng increased. Without a doubt, all of this was because of that brat. In the past, and was not so cold to him. Seeing Alex return in disappointment, the queen worriedly said, And Alex has pursued you for so long. Why are you becoming colder and colder to him? I don't like him. I'm tired of him chasing me. And pouted and unhappily said, Alex is actually very outstanding. You need to calm down and understand him better, the queen advised, and rolled her eyes and coquettishly said, Mother, how can he be as outstanding as Tang Zheng? He is only relying on his family, not his own ability. Family is also a kind of resource, an advantage. There is nothing bad about it. In any case, I don't like the Rothschild family. Since you know that he is a member of the Rothschild family, you shouldn't be so cold to him. So what if he is from the Rothschild family? I don't like him. I just don't like him. And stubbornly turned her head and coldly snorted. The queen was helpless and could only sigh in her heart. Many royal families in Europe had ideas about the Rothschild family, wanting to further their relationship with them, and had this opportunity, but she refused it. She really didn't know whether to say it was lucky or unlucky. Tang Zheng left to pee and finally found Mu Hongyan on a balcony. She was foolishly looking at the night sky. The night wind blew her long skirt and elegant black hair. The night sky was cloudless and filled with stars. It had a kind of intoxicating beauty. Mu Hongyan heard footsteps and turned around, looking at Tang Zheng in surprise. Why are you here? Aren't you going to dance with Anne? What, are you jealous? The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up as he teased. Why would I be jealous? Mu Hongyan pretended to smile lightly. The night wind blew, and she subconsciously hugged her arms. Tang Zheng took off his coat and put it on her. Her heart warmed, and she did not refuse, turning to look at the night sky again. The night sky here is really beautiful. There is too much fog in the capital. It is hard to see this kind of night sky. Mu Hongyan said. Tang Zheng naturally hugged her from behind and said, It won't be long before the night sky in the capital also becomes beautiful. The tree of life was transforming the world's spiritual energy. As long as the spiritual energy was rich, the air would become better. Don't be like this, we will be seen. Mu Hongyan's body tensed up. Her cheeks flushed red as she hurriedly refused, trying to break free from Tang Zheng's embrace. Tang Zheng allowed her to struggle, but he did not let go, not allowing her to refute as he said, Don't move, otherwise if other people are attracted, I won't be responsible. Mu Hongyan bitterly looked up at him and faintly said, You're bullying me. How am I bullying you? How could I bear to? The night wind is so strong. I was afraid that you would catch a cold. so I hugged you to give you warmth." Although she knew that these were empty words, her heart could not help softening as a warm current flowed through her. She gave up struggling and allowed him to intimately hug her. With the night wind blowing, the two of them did not say a single word, but it felt like their hearts were tightly pressed together. An unprecedented sense of security enveloped her heart as her body softened. It was like she was soaking in a hot spring, relaxing her entire body. "Everyone is talking about you and Princess Anne. What do you think?" Mu Hongyan suddenly asked. "What should I think?" Tang Jing asked back. "She is the princess that everyone has their eyes on. With so many people drooling over her, could it be that you're not moved at all?" "I'm not moved. Compared to her, you are the one who moves me." Tang Zheng moved close to her ear and gently said, "You're not ashamed." Mu Hongyan glared at him, but her heart was filled with happiness. No matter what kind of woman they were, they all liked to hear words of love, and she was no exception. "These are my heartfelt words. How could I be ashamed?" Tang Zheng lowered his head and hugged her head, raising her neck. She knew what was coming and felt a bit of anticipation, but also a bit embarrassed. There was only a door between them and the others, so what if they were seen? But before she could think about it, that gentleness had already covered her red lips. With an explosion in her mind, she did not think about anything else as she immersed herself in this gentleness. Chapter 9:14. Alex looked at the scene outside the door in disbelief. He staggered and almost fell flat on his face. He rubbed his eyes to make sure that he was not seeing things. Tang Zheng was actually kissing that charming woman. He was so shocked that his jaw dropped to the ground. This brat actually dared to have a foot on two boats and deceive the princess. He was so angry that he was ready to teach these two a lesson and let and see his true colors. But on second thought, he retracted his foot, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. To catch a thief, catch the evidence, catch an adulterer, catch a couple. If it was just based on my empty words, it might not believe me. Instead, she might think that I am trying to sow discord. Humph, I will go find her and let her see it with her own eyes. This brat will have no way to quibble. Thinking of this, he was so excited that he quickly left quietly. Alex found and told her his discovery loudly and bluntly, which naturally attracted other people's attention. "And I will let you see this person's true colors. He actually dared to fool around with other women behind your back. They are on the balcony. You will understand my good intentions with just one look." When everyone heard that Princess Anne's mysterious knight dared to have such a daring rendezvous with his lover on the balcony, they could not help but be shocked. The flames of gossip burned in their hearts. This was a good show. How could they miss it? The king and queen looked at each other. Their eyes flashed with deep worry. If this was true, then it would be a scandal for the royal family. And had a calm expression. Tang Zheng already had a girlfriend. Even if something really happened between him and someone, she would not be surprised. However, Alex actually mentioned Tang Jing and Mu Hongyan. This was something that she did not expect, so she wanted to see what was going on. "And look!" Alex pointed to the balcony as if he was presenting a treasure and shouted himself hoarse, "Look at how shameless they are. How can this kind of person be worthy of you? This kind of shameless person should be chased out of the holy palace." Alex's accusation was powerful, and everyone looked towards the balcony. A woman's scream rang out. Alex was overjoyed and said even more excitedly, "Catch them in the act. Let's see how this adulterous couple will quibble this time." Everyone looked at the scene on the balcony with a strange expression. They looked at Alex meaningfully. Alex felt uncomfortable being stared at by everyone. He subconsciously turned his head to look. Immediately, his mouth opened wide. He stared at the two people on the balcony in disbelief and roared, "Why are you guys here? Isn't it Tang Zheng?" The two people on the balcony were a well-known couple. They were shocked and at a loss, but they immediately calmed down. It wasn't like they were caught red-handed. What was there to be afraid of? However, their expressions became extremely gloomy as they glared at Alex and asked angrily, "Alex, what is the meaning of this?" Alex was stunned. He never thought that things would turn out like this. For a moment, he was at a loss. He muttered to himself, "Impossible." It was clearly them. How did it become you guys? The two of them had coincidentally left when Tang Jing and Mu Hongyan left, and then secretly came here to kiss each other. However, they didn't expect that this romantic act would be destroyed by Alex's deranged actions, and coldly looked at Alex and angrily said, "A true gentleman should not do this kind of nonsense. I want you to apologize to Tang Zheng." Alex quickly shook his head. "No, it's not like that. I clearly saw Tang Zheng. How could it be them?" "What do you mean? The evidence is right in front of you. Do you still want to quibble? If you don't apologize, then don't expect me to say a word to you in the future," Princess and resolutely said. Alex was both angry and confused. What the F***K was going on? He was sure that he did not see wrong. However, he did not know that Tang Zheng's cultivation was shocking. If he dared to do this kind of thing on the balcony, then he naturally had confidence. When Alex walked past the door, Tang Zheng noticed him but did not say anything. Then he pulled Mu Hongyan into the ballroom. Mu Hongyan's heart almost jumped out of her throat. Her body was weak and her cheeks were red as if she was drunk. She hurriedly hid in the bathroom to calm herself down and touch up her makeup. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was a quiet, pretty boy in a corner, watching with interest as Alex brought a large group of people to catch the adulterers. Everyone looked at this scene and secretly shook their heads. Alex must be dizzy. He actually used such a clumsy method to sow discord. This time he was asking for trouble. The king and queen simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that the royal family did not make a fool of themselves. Immediately, everyone looked at Alex with unfriendly expressions. Alex was riding a tiger and could not back down. However, he still stubbornly said, "I definitely did not see wrong," and gave a cold snort and turned around to leave without saying a word. "And, don't go. Listen to my explanation," Alex loudly shouted, and did not turn her head and said, "Unless you apologize to Tang Zheng, don't expect me to forgive you," and just happened to see Tang Zheng in the corner. She immediately walked over to him and angrily said, "Tang Zheng, Alex has sinister intentions. Don't listen to his nonsense." Tang Zheng smiled and looked at Alex without saying a word. His heart panicked from being looked at, and he became even angrier. He loudly shouted, "I clearly saw you." Tang Zheng indifferently asked, "And the result?" In the end, Alex stuttered, but he couldn't say anything. The result was seen by everyone. "I don't need to say more," Tang Zheng said with a smile. "Yes, the result was that he deliberately tried to drive a wedge between us. This kind of person is too hateful," and chimed in. Alex was at a loss for words. He pointed at Tang Zheng. His cheeks were red as he angrily said, "I will make you regret what you did today. This is Europe, not your backward Huaxia." Tang Zheng's face darkened and said, "Arrogant. A frog at the bottom of a well. Even today, you dare to say that my great Huaxia is backward." Although there were many problems in the country, there was no doubt that this country was becoming stronger and stronger. At the very least, it was not backward. Of course, many people in the West still brought the Huaxia from 100 years ago into the current Huaxia. These people were ignorant and ignorant. They were the real frogs at the bottom of a well. Tang Zheng's words were powerful and a formless aura enveloped Alex's body. Alex was shocked and sat on the ground. He actually had an illusion that Tang Zheng was like a mountain that was difficult to look up at. The pressure made his heart feel as if it was about to stop beating. This was the result of Tang Zheng's dragon's might erupting. Seeing Alex's battered and exhausted appearance, the crowd burst into laughter. Alex's cheeks were red. He angrily climbed up and angrily said, "I will definitely make you regret what you did today." After he finished speaking, he pushed away the crowd and ran away in a sorry state like a defeated general. Seeing this and hurriedly comforted, "Tang Zheng, don't listen to his nonsense. With me here, no one will dare to hurt you." "Do you think he can hurt me?" Tang Zheng faintly smiled and was slightly startled. "It seems that I was thinking too much." Seeing this scene, the king couldn't help but feel a headache. Alex wasn't an ordinary noble. He represented the Rothschild family. It wasn't a wise decision to become enemies with him. The ball didn't last long before it dispersed. The king called out to Tang Zheng, and the two of them went to the study together. Bruce gently closed the door and retreated outside, quietly waiting for the summons. The king looked at Tang Zheng with a serious expression and said, "You made Alex look bad tonight. I'm afraid he will hold a grudge." Tang Zheng didn't mind and said, "Is your majesty worried about my safety? There is no need. I know that you are quite capable and are a cultivator. However, there are also very powerful existences in Europe. They might not be weaker than you cultivators." The king muttered. Tang Zheng's heart moved and asked, "Could it be that there are still remnants of vampires and werewolves in Europe? Those remnants are nothing to worry about. I'm talking about another group of people." "Oh." Tang Zheng's thick eyebrows rose. "This was new information. I'd like to hear the details." The king originally didn't want to tell Tang Zheng about the Rothschild family. After all, the royal family played a dishonorable role in it back then. However, now that things had developed to this point, if he didn't give Tang Zheng some pointers, he would be young and impetuous. In the end, he would cause a huge mess and it wouldn't be easy to clean up. Although he trusted Tang Zheng's strength, this was Europe after all. Europe was more ancient than the Atlantic Empire. The various powers here were complicated and maintained a fragile balance. If he wasn't careful, he would ignite a powder keg and break this balance. That would be a huge problem. In addition to the royal families on the surface, there is actually a large power in Europe, the Rothschild family. This is an old family that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Rockefeller family. The king didn't hide anything and told Tang Zheng about the past, letting him know the power of the Rothschild family. The 12 paladins repelled the Rockefeller family together. This was a heroic feat, although decades have passed. Some people still doubt whether the 12 paladins are still alive and whether they still have the strength they had in the past. However, in my judgment, I'm afraid that the 12 paladins are still alive. Therefore, you can imagine the power of the Rothschild family, and Alex is a member of this family. Tang Zheng suddenly realized why the old king was so serious. It turned out that there was such a large power hidden in Europe. "You also know that Nicholas died in my hands. Do you think I would still be afraid of the 12 paladins?" Tang Zheng didn't think much of it. These Westerners often like to boast, but compared to the practitioners of Huaxia, they were still lacking. The Rockefeller family was the best proof. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't think much of it, the king became anxious and hurriedly said, "There is a saying in Huaxia that an arrogant army is bound to lose. I think this saying is very classic. Although Nicholas lost in your hands, Rothschild is not Nicholas. You can't generalize, so it's better to be careful." The king seemed to have unlimited power these years, but in fact, he had always been cautious. So when he saw Tang Zheng's attitude, he was secretly anxious for him. Chapter 9:15. Although the king's words were very serious, Tang Zheng disagreed and said, "I don't have a direct conflict of interest with the Rothschild family. If they want to fight me to the death just because of Alex, then this family wouldn't have been able to stand for so many years without falling." Big families were very cautious. If they made a big fuss just because of one person's jealousy, then it would be making a big fuss out of nothing. Besides, didn't the Rothschild family always pay attention to keeping a low profile? That was even more unlikely. After listening to Tang Zheng's explanation, the king pondered for a while and had to admit that what he said was true. He nodded and said, "Your analysis is very reasonable. It seems that I was too concerned, but in any case, it's better to be careful. Thank you for your reminder, Your Majesty." Tang Zheng was not a person who was afraid of trouble, and of course, he was not a person who liked to stir up trouble. As long as the Rothschild family did not provoke him, then he would naturally not pay attention to them. The Rockefeller family has a lot of property in Europe. I have already arranged it for you. You can act tomorrow. Bruce will accompany you all the way, the king said. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Madame Mu is fully responsible for this matter. She is more proficient in business than I am." The king said hesitantly, "This is a huge fortune." Tang Zheng knew what he was thinking and waved his hand. "Your Majesty, I chose her because I believe in her." The king was slightly startled. He did not expect Tang Zheng to trust Mu Hongyan so much. He did not say anything more and nodded. "Then it's up to you." Tang Zheng left the study. Tian Chanzi came out of nowhere and looked at him with a meaningful smile. Tang Zheng was baffled and said, "Tian Chanzi, why are you smiling so lowly?" "Boy, You are slandering me. I am so sage-like. How could I have anything to do with that word? Tian Chanzi refuted righteously. Tang Zheng curled his lips and said, Don't flatter yourself. I saw that you were very coquettish today. You seem to be having a lot of fun dancing with others. Tang Zheng gestured in front of his chest. Tian Chanzi immediately thought of the woman with large breasts, but he retorted seriously, Nonsense. This is communication. Understand? Tang Zheng chuckled. I understand. You don't have to explain. The more you explain, the worse it gets. You still have the nerve to talk about me? Don't think I don't know what you did. That Alex didn't frame you, right? Tian Chanzi said meaningfully. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He really couldn't hide anything from Tian Chanzi's discerning eyes, but he said without changing his expression, If he's not framing me, then what is? Why are you siding with an outsider? After that, Tang Zheng walked away without looking back. Guilty conscience. Tian Chanzi shouted at Tang Zheng's back. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. When he returned to his room, he thought of Mu Hongyin who lived next door. He wondered if he should climb over the wall. But when he thought that Tian Chanzi must be secretly watching, he temporarily suppressed the idea in his heart. Ding! A text message came in. Rest early, good night. Mu Hongyin sent a text message. Mu Hongyin had never sent him a good night text before. He felt warm in his heart and quickly replied, Did you miss me? This text message was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reply. He guessed that she might have fallen asleep, so he fell into a deep sleep. But he didn't know that this text message kept Mu Hongyin awake for most of the night. She had been wondering whether to reply or not. She was very worried that Tang Zheng would come in the middle of the night. What would happen if he found out? But there was also a faint expectation in her heart. She was much less reserved than other girls. She knew what she needed. Of course, she was very eager, but her rationality stopped her. If Tang Zheng really sneaked in, she was afraid that she wouldn't resist. In the end, she struggled until she was exhausted and fell into a deep sleep. Tian Chanzi used his energy to eavesdrop for a long time, but there was no sound. He sighed. How could this guy be so stupid? Although this Mu Hongyin's inchi was weak, it was better than nothing. He was actually indifferent to such a great beauty. He was really a blockhead. If Tang Zheng knew Tian Chanzi's thoughts, he would probably be impatient to climb over the wall. The next day, Mu Hongyin and Bruce left to deal with business matters. Tang Zheng was called in by, and early in the morning. She volunteered to take Tang Zheng on a tour of her country. Last time, Tang Zheng came and went in a hurry, so he didn't have time to properly appreciate this country. Tang Zheng couldn't refuse, so he could only follow her. Tian Chanzi didn't want to be a third wheel behind the two of them, so he left the palace on his own. When Tang Zheng saw the team ready to go, he realized how wise Tian Chanzi's decision was. With so many attendants surrounding him, how could he play? Tang Zheng didn't like this kind of life, and saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts. Her eyes lit up and she whispered, Do you have a way to slip away from under their noses? We can get rid of them and play by ourselves. Tang Zheng was also a fearless person, so he readily agreed. No problem, then we'll think of a way to slip away. Baser and the others were still bitterly waiting for Princess and to get on the carriage, but they didn't notice that the two people had already jumped down from the palace's window, which was more than 10 meters high. They quietly fell into a dense forest nearby, and had a rebellious spirit hidden in her bones. When she sneaked into the forest, her cheeks were red with excitement, as if she was drunk. I've always wanted to escape from their eyes and ears, but every time I didn't succeed. This time, with your help, I finally succeeded. When your cultivation is high in the future, this will only be a small matter. Tang Zheng lightly said, AI, when will my cultivation be as high as yours? Anne's expression darkened as she said dejectedly, If you use the crystals to absorb the energy within, your cultivation will naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Crystals? Anne's expression stiffened. Of course she knew that her father had more than 2 crystals, but as for how many he had, she didn't know. You won't tell me that your father really doesn't have any more crystals, right? Tang Zheng said with interest, and awkwardly said, So you already know? Not only do I know, even Tian Chanzi knows. Tang Zheng didn't want to hide it from her. Crystals were really good things. Although he now had Chi Yu's heart's blood and didn't need to absorb the energy of crystals, the people around him needed it too much. Master actually knows about it too. Annie was shocked. Your father specially invited Tian Chanzi this time. It's not as simple as just wanting to see him, right? You should have other requests. Since we're not outsiders, you might as well just get straight to the point with Tian Chanzi. This was Tang Zheng's guess, so he directly told her there was no need to beat around the bush. Anne's expression kept changing, thinking that she had to tell her father about this matter. But she didn't want to let this matter spoil her mood. In the blink of an eye, her face was full of sunshine as she said, "Let's not talk about this. Let's quickly leave this forest and go to the main street. My country has a long history and has many famous scenic spots. Your trip will definitely be worthwhile." Then I'll wait and see. Before coming out, and had specially dressed up so that people who weren't familiar with her wouldn't be able to recognize her. The two of them walked along the streets, which were filled with the ancient charm of history. This country's population wasn't large, so it wasn't as busy as their home country. It was very leisurely and comfortable. There were many cafes along the street, and many people sat inside and ordered a cup of coffee without doing anything, lazily basking in the sun. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. This was a developed country. His own country was too far behind and still had a long way to go. Hundreds of years ago, his own country was still standing at the top of the world, but the world had changed and it had fallen to this point. Huaxia will definitely rise. Tang Zheng was full of confidence and was like a lively spirit, full of vitality. Unknowingly, she grabbed Tang Zheng's hand and didn't let go. Her hand seemed to have no bones, slightly cold and very soft. It was very comfortable to hold in his hand. The two of them toured the ancient ruins and visited the magnificent and mysterious church. In the end, Tang Zheng actually saw a Chinese tour group in the crowd. Chinese tour groups had been criticized for all these years. They were said to be of poor quality and had lost their face overseas. But this tour group didn't have such bad habits. Clearly, one couldn't generalize from one side. "Look at your countrymen, Princess, and also saw this tour group. Let's go over and say hello." After saying this, she pulled him to the front of the group of tourists and waved in a friendly manner. "Friends of Huaxia, hello everyone. Welcome to my country." This friendliness stunned everyone. Such a beautiful foreign girl could actually speak Huaxia. This made them very surprised. "Hello, hello." Everyone responded excitedly. "I hope you like my country," Princess Anne said. "Yes, this country is very beautiful." Everyone praised politely, but more people noticed Tang Zheng, who was holding hands with Anne. Suddenly, everyone's eyes lit up. Could this foreign girl be this young man's girlfriend? Then this young man must be from Huaxia. He really brought glory to the country by finding such a beautiful foreign girl. "Hello, everyone." Tang Zheng also smiled and greeted in a friendly manner. "Wow, you're really from Huaxia. Handsome. You're so awesome." Everyone gave him a thumbs up. Tang Zheng smiled lightly and said, "I hope you have fun." Seeing that someone in the crowd had already taken photos of him and Anne, he pulled in and prepared to leave. But Anne saw that the little girl in front of her was very cute. She bent down and held her face, praising, "Wow, what a cute little girl." Suddenly, Anne felt a hot liquid sprinkle on her face. She touched it subconsciously and her hand was full of blood. Tang Zheng's reaction was faster than Annie's. He saw that the moment Annie bent down, the little girl's mother's chest bloomed with a dark red flower of blood. "Sniper rifle." Tang Zheng's nerves immediately tensed up. He shouted, "Get down," and pushed in the little girl to the ground. Whoosh. Chapter 9:16. Tang Zheng sensed the bullets coming from behind him. In order to avoid shocking the world, he did not use the holy armor shield. Instead, he quickly carried Anne and the little girl and quickly dodged. In a flash, a single hole appeared on the stone slab on the ground. White smoke rose from the hole and stone chips flew everywhere. "Ah!" Everyone finally reacted and screamed as they scattered in all directions. The woman who was shot fell into a pool of blood. No one knew if she was dead or alive. Tang Zheng firmly used his body to protect Anne and the little girl. He suddenly turned around and saw a few tall and strong men with sideburns rushing out of an off-road vehicle. These people wore baseball caps, camouflage pants, black short-sleeved t-shirts, and tactical vests. They held rifles in their hands and looked like they did not want anyone to get close to them. Mercenaries. Tang Zheng had seen this kind of outfit in a movie before. It was a standard mercenary outfit. Who were these people targeting? Anne? He quickly recalled the scene just now. The bullet was aimed at Anne. However, by chance, and bent down, and the little girl's mother became a sacrifice. A strong murderous intent surged in his heart. It was not only because these people were targeting Anne, but also because of him. An unfamiliar compatriot was shot and fell to the ground. These people aimed their guns at and from afar and pulled the trigger at the same time. Tang Zheng did not care about his own safety. He waved his war spirit. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Sword chi vibrated and intertwined into a huge, invisible sword net. Puff, puff, puff. The bullets hit the sword net. The air vibrated and set off a biting cold wind that blew in all directions. A few trees nearby were cut in half. Everyone screamed and ran away in fear. The mercenaries did not expect the bullets to lose their power in midair and fell to the ground one after another. This scene was beyond their common sense. However, they were well-trained soldiers. Attacking was their only thought. Although they could not understand the situation, they did not retreat. They directly stood a few meters away from Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not dare to move. Although Anne was also a cultivator, her strength was too weak. In this situation, she did not have the strength to protect herself. If he rushed out to deal with this group of people, in case the hidden sniper attacked, her life would be taken. He was the one who brought Anne out. He would definitely not let anyone hurt her and the little girl in her arms. Looking at the little girl, he thought of Nana at home. They were at the same age as flowers. They should bloom brilliantly and not wither. There were so many mercenaries, and there was even a sniper hiding in the dark, so Tang Zheng couldn't care less about shocking the world. With his finger, war spirit, he directly flew out. Since he could not leave in, he would use the sword to attack. These mercenaries would never have dreamed that he would have such a method. War spirit was as fast as lightning. With a sword, it pierced through the chest of a mercenary. A huge bloody hole appeared on his chest. He stared with his eyes wide open. He could not believe that he had died just like that. Seeing this, the other mercenaries turned pale with fright. However, they did not retreat. They changed the magazine and continued to pull the trigger. The bullet shells scattered all over the ground. Gotcha! The sword net was finally unable to bear the burden and shattered. Seeing this, the other party became excited. The bullets shot over even more crazily. In for a penny, in for a pound. Since he had already used the war soul, he might as well take out the holy armor shield as well. The sacred armor shield flashed and appeared in his hands. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets hit the sacred armor shield, but the sacred armor shield was unscathed. It did not even leave a mark. This was much stronger than the bulletproof vest they were wearing. Seeing Tang Zheng's endless tricks, the mercenaries looked at each other in dismay. Even if their hearts were firm and they didn't know what fear was, seeing these things that were beyond their knowledge, their hearts couldn't help but beat like a drum. Kill! Tang Zheng angrily roared, and the battle soul sword attacked again. It descended from the sky, and with a poochie sound, it directly chopped down on the head of a mercenary. Then, from top to bottom, it did not stop at all. In an instant, the mercenary was split into two, and the two halves of his body fell to the sides. The mercenaries were experienced and knowledgeable, but seeing this kind of death, their faces turned ugly. They hurriedly shouted into their headphones, "Quick, shoot!" A powerful bullet shot out and hit the sacred armor shield with a bang. It was still unable to break through the sacred armor shield's defense. Another sniper. This time, Tang Zheng finally caught the trajectory of the bullet. He looked up and saw the roof of a building dozens of meters away. He squinted his eyes. Although it was dozens of meters away, he could still vaguely see a gun barrel on the roof. Bang, bang, bang. The sniper missed and continued to shoot. It was as if he was not afraid of exposing himself. This was because he had to protect his companions as they retreated. The mercenaries saw Tang Zheng's tricks. After attacking for a long time, They finally realized that their mission had failed, so they decisively retreated. They were extremely afraid of the war spirit that was floating in the air. This sword was their nightmare. It could actually fly in the air against common sense. Could it be that it was some kind of high technology? They stopped shooting at Tang Jing and directly pulled the trigger on the war spirit. The war spirit was hit until it made crackling sounds, but it still firmly stopped in the air. It only slightly swayed a few times. Their movements were very fast. They immediately retreated to the SUV and started the car to prepare to escape. Tang Jing was furious and roared, "You want to escape? Go to hell." With a point of his finger, the war spirit flew out with a whistling sound and flew in front of the SUV's windshield. Everyone in the car saw the sword that was like a ghost. However, they were sitting in a car that was like an iron wall. So how could they be afraid of a sword? The car engine roared, and the back of the car spewed out black smoke. The car rushed out like a wild beast. Whiz! The war spirit slashed down. Puff! Like cutting tofu, the war spirit slashed through the middle of the SUV. In an instant, the SUV disintegrated. Just like the mercenaries, it was split into two. Boom! The SUV crashed into a big tree on the side of the road and turned into a pile of scrap metal. With a boom, it exploded into a ball of fire and soared into the air. Tang Jing did not even look at it. He turned around and looked at Anne, whose expression was as usual, and warned, "Don't run around. Take the holy armor shield and protect yourself and her." This was not the first time and had encountered an assassination attempt. This was the tragedy of the royal family. Although they were the focus of attention, they were also the target of public criticism. "Don't worry, I will protect her," and hugged the trembling little girl in her arms and said firmly. She also knew that she had brought harm to this little girl and her mother, whose life was uncertain. She felt very guilty and said angrily, "We must make the murderer pay with blood." Tang Jing did not say a word and rushed out like lightning. The war spirit flew back into his hands. He looked around and saw that there were no more snipers on the balcony. He did not give up and directly rushed to the building. With a tap of his foot, he soared into the air. Then, he lightly tapped the wall a few times and soared into the air, like an eagle flying to the roof. Although the others fled in all directions, they did not escape too far. Many people subconsciously used their phones to record this intense battle. Many people's eyes lit up as they looked at Tang Jing in disbelief. The various methods he displayed were something they had never heard of or seen before. Of course, many people also subconsciously thought that Tang Jing's war spirit and holy armor shield were high-tech products. But when Tang Jing walked up from the wall as if he was walking on flat ground, they were so scared that their phones almost fell to the ground. Was this still a human? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, as if they had discovered a new continent. They all shared this video on the internet. A motorcade drove out from the corner of the street and rushed towards and like lightning. Everyone's heart tightened. Could it be another mercenary? Everyone's heart could not help but be anxious for Anne and the others. But those with sharp eyes noticed the royal family's insignia on the motorcade and cried out in alarm. Why would the royal family's motorcade appear here? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. But when they saw that the motorcade had not yet stopped, a group of people jumped out. The first to bear the brunt was Bazer. Bazer had never been as anxious as he was today. Originally, he was going to accompany Her Highness to tour the city. But he did not expect that Anne and Tang Jing would disappear. Without a doubt, these two people deliberately wanted to get rid of them. He knew that Tang Jing's strength, and all of them combined, could not compare to him. But after all, this was his duty, and he could not push his responsibility to Tang Jing. So, he still led a group of guards to look for Princess and in the city. Fortunately, there were only a few famous scenic spots in the city, so it did not take long for them to find this place. But they did not expect to hear the fierce sound of gunfire, as if they had come to a battlefield. They realized that something was wrong and quickly rushed over. When they saw the messy battlefield, the shocking sight of corpses and car wreckage, they realized how tragic the battle was. Bazer's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. How was Princess Anne? If something happened to her, he would not be able to live. Princess Anne had helped him before, and he remembered it in his heart. He would rather sacrifice himself than let her be hurt. Princess Annie saw Bazer and the others and hurriedly called out, "I'm here." This was like the sound of nature, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. They rushed over and surrounded Princess Annie in the middle, forming a human wall. Every one of them was armed with a rifle, and they were on alert. Princess Anne finally stood out from behind the holy armor shield. The crowd in the distance also saw her. Someone finally recognized her and shouted, "Princess Anne, it's Her Highness," and was the first princess in Europe. Although there were many princesses in Europe, there was no doubt that she was the most famous and the most popular one. Only then did everyone realize that it was the royal motorcade. It turned out that Princess Anne was the one who was attacked. Who would be so daring to assassinate Princess Annie? Chapter 9:17. Tang Zhang climbed to the top of the building and saw a figure jump down from the top of the building. He quickly chased after it, but found that it was a rope between the two floors. The sniper was already in the middle of the rope with a pulley. The sniper seemed to have sensed that there was someone behind him and suddenly turned his head, only to find Tang Zhang standing not far away, staring straight at him. The sniper was so shocked that he almost fell from the sky. How did this person get up? Why was he so fast? Whoosh! Tang Zhang moved. He stepped on the rope and chased after the sniper as if he was walking on flat ground. He was much faster than the sniper. The sniper's eyes flashed with horror. He grabbed the pulley with one hand and took out his pistol with the other. He aimed at Tang Zhang and pulled the trigger. The bullets flew past Tang Zhang, but he didn't slow down. He flew over the sniper's head and reached the top of the opposite building first. The sniper was terrified. There was no way to retreat. He was dozens of meters above the ground. He would definitely die if he fell. So he could only watch as he got closer and closer to Tang Zhang. His magazine was empty, and there was nothing he could do. Tang Zhang shot out like lightning, grabbing the sniper's neck and pulling him down from the air. The sniper tried to struggle, but couldn't move at all. "Tell me, who sent you here? Do you want to kill Princess and or deal with me?" Tang Zhang asked murderously. "I won't tell you," the sniper said stubbornly. "Even if you don't tell me, I have a way to find out." Tang Zhang didn't want to waste time with him. He wanted to use the soul-searching technique. However, with a bang, the sniper's head exploded. Red and white liquid exploded in all directions. Tang Zhang was scared out of his wits and hurriedly dodged far away. The sniper softly fell to the ground, but his head had already been blown away. Could there be another sniper? Tang Zhang looked around but didn't find anything suspicious. Moreover, he didn't hear the sound of a bullet. A bomb. He immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be that the sniper had installed a mini-bomb in his head and detonated it remotely? He sucked in a breath of cold air. This meant that the enemy had not been completely eliminated, and there were still enemies spying on them in the dark. He was worried about Anne's safety, so he didn't waste any time at the top of the building. He jumped down from the top of the building, and with a quick tap of his toes on the wall, he landed firmly on the ground. A group of royal guards rushed over. When they saw him jump down from such a high building without a single scratch, they all turned pale with fright. "The sniper's body is on the rooftop," Tang Zhang said, and quickly returned to the scene of the incident. The guards surrounded Princess, and as if they were facing a great enemy, fearing that the enemy would attack, and lay beside the little girl's mother and pressed down on the spot where she was shot in the chest to stop the blood from flowing out. "She's not dead?" Tang Zhang was shocked and couldn't help but feel a little relieved. If this innocent person was really implicated and lost his life, whether it was him or Anne, they would both feel very sad and guilty. He took 3 steps and rushed over. When and saw Tang Zhang, she was like a drifting duckweed that finally found its roots. She anxiously shouted, "Tang Zhang, quickly save her." "Let me do it." Tang Zhang supported the woman, his true chi flowed, and he immediately investigated her injuries. The bullet was left in the chest, but it didn't hurt the main organs and aorta. The only trouble was that the bullet was still in the body. If it stayed there for a long time, it would be dangerous. The little girl was crying on the side, crying and shouting, "Mom, wake up, don't leave me." Seeing this scene, Tang Zhang and Anne's heart tightened. Tang Zhang quickly comforted her. "Child, don't cry. Your mother is fine. I will save her." The little girl didn't understand, sobbing, "You must save my mother. I only have one mother." Bezer urged, "Your Highness, let's leave here first. This is the square. It is very spacious and there are many eyes. If there is a sniper, then it will be difficult for us to guard against." Bezer looked at the surrounding crowd and the surrounding buildings, afraid that another bullet would shoot out from somewhere. As Anne's bodyguard, of course he first considered her safety. This was his duty, and was not moved and firmly said, "I will not leave. She was injured because of me, unless she is out of danger. Princess, we will send her to the hospital." Bezer quickly persuaded. "Your persuasion is useless. I must see with my own eyes that her life is not in danger, then I will leave." Anne persisted. "Stop arguing," Tang Jing shouted, stopping the two. "I will save her. Be quiet for me," and was overjoyed and quickly asked, "Really?" But seeing the serious look on Tang Jing's face, she quickly covered her mouth. Bezer wanted to persuade again, but seeing Tang Jing's appearance, he swallowed back his words. Tang Jing silently urged his internal energy. One of his internal energy protected her heart, while the other carefully pushed the bullet out of her body. Under everyone's eyes, the bullet was pushed out little by little, falling to the ground with a crisp sound. Anne and Bezer were already used to this, but the other bodyguards had an expression of disbelief. Tang Jing quickly used his internal energy to seal the blood vessels around the wound, stopping the bleeding. Then he picked her up and said, "Get in the car, we are going to the hospital," and held the pretty girl's hand and said, "I will go with you." Tang Jing did not refuse. Bezer had objections, but he did not dare to show it, and could only order his subordinates to immediately move. Tang Jing quickly got into the car, but a Huaxia woman timidly rushed over, shouting and screaming, but was stopped by the bodyguards. Tang Jing glanced and saw that it was someone from the tour group, perhaps this woman's friend. He shouted, "Let her come over." Bezer hesitated and flew into a rage. "What are you standing there for? Didn't you hear? Let her come over." The bodyguards did not dare to stop them, and the woman rushed over, asking in a panic, "How is she? Is she in danger? You are her friend, right? Get in the car. We are going to the hospital." Tang Jing said as he got into the car, and the others also got in one by one. The motorcade rushed to the hospital, and at the same time, more than 10 police cars drove out from the streets, protecting the motorcade, sounding the alarm, and headed to the hospital. The cars on the road gave way to the motorcade, and there was a lot of discussion when they saw the motorcade, especially the royal cars, which aroused a strong interest. At the same time, the internet was in an uproar. The video of Princess Anne's assassination had skyrocketed to millions of views, and it was still rising. Everyone started to accuse those evil people of daring to do such a thing to Princess Anne, who was loved by everyone, and even had flowers blooming in her sight. Of course, the other focus of people's attention was the unbelievably powerful man in the video, a hero saving a beauty, envied by others. This man was soon found out by people, and it turned out to be the princess's mysterious knight. Was this knight specially sent by God to save the princess? Every time the princess was in danger, he seemed to come from the sky and save the princess. Originally, many people were still cursing this mysterious knight for being so lucky to win the heart of Princess Anne, but seeing this scene, many of them were convinced and sighed. With such powerful strength, it was no wonder that he could attract the princess. Of course, Princess Annie's valiant appearance when she saved the people had attracted many people's attention. Many people had turned into her fans and liked this straightforward princess. Tang Jing and the others, of course, didn't know about the uproar on the internet. They had already rushed to the hospital, and the hospital had received the notice in advance and immediately sent the injured to the operating room for rescue. Princess Anne sat at the door of the operating room, holding the little girl's hand, and looked at the operating room anxiously. Tang Jing comforted her, "Don't worry, he will be fine." Anne's face was painful and she said guiltily, "But I'm still worried that he was shot because of me." Tang Jing's heart sank. He couldn't get away from this matter. If he wasn't from Huaxia, and wouldn't have gone to ask about this tour group. "Your Highness, it's not your fault. The bad guy is too evil." At this time, The patient's friend who had been silent all this time spoke. Although she was concerned about the safety of her friend, she had been very nervous. After all, the other party was the princess, and for many people, the princess was an existence that they could only look up to. Although Anne was approachable, she was still very nervous. Hearing her say this, Anne finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely get justice for her. I will definitely not let the murderer go unpunished." On the way, Tang Zheng had already told them that the sniper was killed, but also that the accomplice was still there. The always benevolent princess and finally lost her temper. While in the car, she called the king to inform him that the country's machinery was already in operation, and it was necessary to get to the bottom of this matter. After calming down, Tang Zheng figured out the ins and outs of the matter and asked doubtfully, "How did this group of killers know where you were so clearly?" Anne's expression froze. Although they were acting alone today, the attractions they visited were more or less the same as what they had planned. Unless someone knew their itinerary in advance, how could they have arranged for the mercenaries to wait here so coincidentally? "Are you saying that there's a mole among us?" Hearing this, Bazer's expression became very unpleasant. He was the princess's personal guard, and if there was anyone who knew her itinerary, it was one of them. "Your Highness, it's not me. How could I do such a thing?" Bazer hurriedly explained. "I know it's not you," and said. Bazer breathed a sigh of relief, but then his heart sank again. He was fully in charge of the princess's safety, and even the guards were carefully selected by him. If there was a mole among them, he couldn't absolve himself from the blame. "Your Highness, I can't absolve myself from the blame. Don't worry, I will definitely find the mole," Bazer said resolutely. Chapter 9:18. The Mastermind? Anne and Bazer were both shocked. Who could it be? "Have you encountered many assassinations in the past?" Tang Zheng asked. "A long time ago, but not in the past few years." Anne recalled. "The enemy came prepared this time. It's definitely not simple. What's the benefit of killing you? You don't have any grudges against them. Her Highness is a member of the royal family. If anything happened to her, it would be a huge blow to the royal family and the entire country," Bazer said. "Who would have such a motive?" I don't know," and waved her hand and said, "Don't guess blindly. Since they're carrying out a conspiracy here, they'll find some clues." Just as she finished speaking, Anne's phone rang. She picked it up and listened for a while. Her expression became strange. "What's wrong?" Tang Zheng asked curiously when she hung up. "There's news. We've captured another group of mercenaries. They were lying in ambush at several places we might pass by, waiting for an opportunity to strike. We only met one of them." Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. This assassination was really costly. There were actually so many people lying in ambush. Thump. "Is there any news of the mastermind behind this?" Someone confessed. "He said it was Alex who ordered it," and said angrily. "It must be because he made a fool of himself last night and wanted to take revenge on us." "Him?" Tang Zheng was shocked. "The person he wanted to take revenge on should be me. Why would he assassinate you?" And hesitated and said, "It's very simple. He must also hate me because I was helping you last night." Bazer was furious. This person is too sinister. He actually dared to do such a crazy thing to Her Highness. Although Tang Zheng didn't know Alex, he felt that this matter was a bit strange. He shook his head and said, "I don't think it's that simple. I don't think he would assassinate you. He treated you like that, but you still speak up for him. You're too kind," and said. Tang Zheng was slightly stunned and forced a wry smile. "No one has ever said that I'm benevolent. I'm not being merciful. I just feel that something is amiss. There were too many people in the hospital and too many secrets were involved, so it was not appropriate to say too much. Since the country's machinery was in operation, the other party's assassination was basically a failure." Not long after, the door of the operating room opened and the doctor walked out. His expression was a little strange and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Anne's heart was in her mouth again. She quickly asked, "Doctor, how is it?" "Your Highness, the patient suffered a gunshot wound, not a penetrating one, but we didn't find a bullet in her body." The doctor wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He felt uneasy. He couldn't even deal with such a small injury in front of the princess. He felt a lot of pressure. He found it a few times, but he couldn't find the warhead, so he had no choice but to come out and ask for forgiveness. This was too strange, and immediately guessed what he was thinking and said, "Doctor, I'm sorry. We forgot to tell you that the warhead has been taken out." "Ah, you took it out? How could this be? I didn't see any traces of it being taken out." The doctor was shocked. The warhead seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There were no traces of surgery. He had never heard of or seen this kind of technology before. He was the one who took it out. The others also saw it. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. And didn't know why the doctor had such a big reaction. The others nodded. "Sir, was it you who took out the bullet? How did you do it?" The doctor looked at Tang Zheng and asked curiously. Tang Zheng guessed the doctor's thoughts. This kind of thing couldn't be explained by science. He didn't want to say it, so he said, "Doctor, this is a small matter. The key is, how is she?" "Yes, how is she? Is she in danger?" And also asked, "She's fine. We have already stitched up the wound. The next step is to recover. But she lost too much blood and is still unconscious." Everyone let out a sigh of relief and said, "You must use the best medicine to treat her. Do you understand?" "Your Highness, rest assured. This is our duty." Baser saw this and hurriedly said, "Princess, can we go back now?" Since the wounded was fine, there was no point in staying. The most important thing was to find the mastermind and get justice, and comforted the little girl for a while and promised to visit often before leaving the hospital. "Go find Alex," and ordered domineeringly as soon as she got in the car. "Princess, His Majesty ordered us to return to the palace." Baser said awkwardly, and said without hesitation, "Go find Alex." Looking at her determined face, Baser couldn't do anything. If he disobeyed again, he was afraid that he would have to pack up and leave. Although Tang Zheng suspected that this was not Alex's doing, there was no harm in confronting him. He could get more direct information and make a better judgment. The motorcade stopped in front of an antique castle. The Rothschild family's headquarters was not in Sweden, but they had properties in various European countries. This castle was one of them. When Alex came to Sweden, he naturally stayed here. Usually, almost no one from the family lived here, but there were still housekeepers and servants to take care of the castle. When they saw the royal motorcade, the automatic door slowly opened and the housekeeper came forward to welcome them, and was familiar with the place and asked directly, "Where is Alex?" "Your Highness, the young master is in the castle. This way, please." The housekeeper led them into the castle and a majestic historical aura hit them in the face. Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes. This ancient family's heritage was deep. It was not something that the nouveau riche of today could compare to. Dong, dong, dong. Alex walked down the stairs and saw Anne. His face lit up with joy, but when he saw Tang Zheng, he immediately frowned and said coldly, "What are you doing here?" and walked in front of him and asked directly, "Alex, did you send someone to assassinate me and Tang Zheng?" "What? Assassinate?" Alex was shocked. "What assassinate? You're still pretending. I'll see how long you can pretend. You're clearly resentful of what happened last night. You actually used such a despicable method. If you have any ability, then use it openly. If you use this kind of scheme, I will look down on you even more," and reprimanded without any trace of politeness. Alex's face darkened and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. If I want to deal with this brat, I can defeat him openly. Why would I send an assassin? What a joke." "Is that so? But someone has already confessed. You're the mastermind," Princess and said unrelentingly. "Someone confessed? Now you don't have any excuses. Humph, I've seen through you. Since you insist that I'm the mastermind, then I'm the mastermind. I hate him." Alex's face turned from black to red. He did not argue and personally admitted it. "You finally admitted it," and was like a victorious general. "I've already admitted it. What can you do to me?" Alex asked provocatively. "Baser, capture him. I want to bring him back to face the law," and ordered. Baser had been in the royal family for a long time and already knew of Alex's identity. He was shocked and hesitantly said, "Your Highness, calm down. This matter needs to be considered at length. Alex not only represented himself, but the family behind him was the most powerful. If they casually arrested someone like this, then the royal family would not be able to escape responsibility. "You're not listening to my orders?" And raised her eyebrows, and the aura of a princess suddenly erupted. Beizir trembled with fear and did not know what to do. Tangjung did not speak the entire time. He quietly observed Alex's reaction. Although he had personally admitted to this matter, Tangjung gradually believed that his judgment was correct. He was afraid that he had been wronged in this matter. Since Alex was not the culprit, and the other party had specifically confessed that he was the mastermind, then this matter was worth thinking about. A net seemed to be growing larger and larger above their heads, wanting to pull them all in. "Wait," Tangjung called out. Beizir let out a sigh of relief and looked at him with a frown and asked, "What's wrong?" "This matter is a bit strange," Tangjung said in a low voice, and did not think much of it. "What's strange about it?" He already admitted it himself. Tangjung shook his head and explained. Alex's admission just now was more like words spoken in a moment of anger. "It can't be taken seriously." "Don't tell me you can't take his words seriously?" and asked in a huff. She was too concerned this time. She was truly angered by today's matter, so it was difficult for her to calm down. Alex looked at Tangjung with an odd expression. How did he know that I was speaking in a moment of anger? At this time, shouldn't he be hitting me when I'm down? But does he think that I'll appreciate his kindness just because he said that? Don't even think about it. Alex sneered and said, "What right do you have to say that I'm lying? What I said is absolutely true, but what can you do to me? You're just a nobody from Huaxia. How can you fight with me?" Tangjung shook his head inwardly. At this juncture, he was still so stubborn. He did not know if his brain was made of paste. There was a limit to jealousy. Immediately, Tangjung became more and more certain of his thoughts. This matter definitely had nothing to do with him. It was just that someone was secretly using this point. Perhaps he also knew about Alex's bad temper. He was being schemed against but did not know it. He still wanted to jump into the pit. If it wasn't for him, who would it be for? "Shut up. You're still trying to be brave at this time. Are you an idiot? Don't you know that someone is scheming against you?" Tangjung scolded in annoyance. Alex was stunned. He did not expect that Tangjung would dare to be so impudent in his own territory. Twice in a row, he had suffered in front of Tangjung. Although there were no other spectators this time, it made him even angrier. Before he could flip out, he was stunned to see that Tangjung was also lecturing in. "If you don't calm down when something happens, it will spoil things in the future. Do you understand? Your identity is too sensitive. People with ulterior motives will use it to make an issue out of it. As long as there's even the slightest mistake, it will be too late for you to regret it in the future. Do you understand?" Chapter 9:19. Alex looked at Tangjung as if he had seen a ghost. He actually dared to reprimand Princess and he never dared to do such a thing. Moreover, Princess and was not someone he could casually reprimand. Alex was extremely indignant and angrily said, "What kind of attitude is this? Do you know who you are talking to?" Tangjung speechlessly rolled his eyes. "Do you have a screw loose in your head? I am helping you. Can't you see?" Alex clearly did not appreciate it and continued to say, "And you finally saw his true face. This kind of person is too hateful. Don't pay attention to him in the future." And turned a deaf ear and blankly stared at Tangjung. This was the first time he had reprimanded her. Although she felt wronged, she strangely calmed down. Her clever brain finally returned to normal. After thinking it over, she connected the dots. One by one, suspicious points gradually surfaced. However, in the end, she did not completely dispel her suspicions towards Alex. After hearing Alex's words, she unhappily said, "Are you an idiot? Don't you know that Tangjung is defending you?" Alex stifled a breath in his chest and almost spat out blood. He looked at Tangjung with disdain and said, "Who wants him to defend me? Meddling in other people's business." Tangjung did not want to continue talking nonsense with this idiot. He directly pulled and Anne was about to leave. Alex angrily looked at the two holding hands and unwillingly shouted, "Hey, Where are you guys going? I am afraid that if I stay with this idiot for too long, I will also become an idiot. Tang Zheng said without any trace of politeness. You're saying that I am an idiot? Alex pointed at his nose in disbelief. Since he was young, people only praised him for being smart and quick-witted. No one had ever said that he was an idiot. He was so angry that smoke almost came out of his 7 orifices. I'm saying that you are an idiot, Princess An said without any trace of politeness. And, why are you also like this? Alex felt extremely wronged. Tang Zheng shook his head. This Alex was a member of the Rothschild family, but he clearly could not be compared to the young Lord Louis of the Rockefeller family. Louis was resourceful and ruthless. Although this Alex had a bit of a playboy aura, in his bones he was just a jealous young master. Although Anne wanted to confront Alex, she could not refuse and hurriedly walked out of the castle. Don't run. I'm going to talk to you guys. Who's the one with a brain? Seeing the few people get in the car, Alex immediately called for the housekeeper to drive a car to drive to the car. Then, he personally drove the car and chased after them with a roar. Tang Zheng and the others noticed the tail behind them from afar. Tang Zheng helplessly shook his head. This Alex is really devoted to you. When he saw me say a word about you, he couldn't wait to beat me up. And pursed her lips and said, He's so annoying. How is he devoted? Why didn't I see it? He just kept following me. Hee, you don't know how lucky you are. With his identity, there should be many girls chasing after him, right? Tang Zheng joked with a smile. Anne's eyes lit up and said curiously, Hey, you know about this too. Who told you? I just guessed it. It's not that difficult, but he still chased after you. This means that he has deep feelings for you. And made a vomiting gesture and said, Deep feelings? Forget it. I don't need it. After saying that, her eyes lit up and looked at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked at her eyes and laughed involuntarily. What, do you really like me? Then wouldn't Alex hate me to death? I like you. What are you going to do? And asked directly and aggressively. This joke isn't funny at all. Tang Zheng didn't take the bait and said indifferently, Who said it's a joke? I'm serious. And stared at him without blinking, incomparably serious. Tang Zheng didn't want to continue this topic. He really didn't have any thoughts about Anne, even though she was a princess and had a noble status. If an ordinary person had such an honor, they would definitely be flattered and feel that their ancestral graves were emitting smoke. Tang Zheng didn't feel it at all, and even felt that it was a bit troublesome. He waved his hand and changed the topic. Let's talk about the problem at hand first. Bezer glanced at the two from the rearview mirror and was shocked. The princess took the initiative to express her love, but Tang Zheng changed the topic. This, he really couldn't find the words to describe it, and pursed her lips and said faintly, Coward. She had always had a hazy good impression of Tang Zheng, but back in Huaxia, Tang Zheng had other women and the two rarely had the chance to be alone. This good impression had always been brewing in the dark. Now that the two had many opportunities to be alone, her good impression of him erupted like a volcano. She couldn't help but take the initiative to express her feelings. She was a bit disappointed that Tang Zheng didn't take the bait, but she didn't despair. She immediately recovered and said, Although I still don't believe that Alex is innocent, since you insist on this point, then I have nothing to say. We've lost the lead. What do we do now? Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a while and said, We haven't completely lost the lead. Since the mastermind behind the scenes wants us to have a conflict with Alex, then this will definitely be beneficial to him. As for what the benefit is, I don't know for now. But His Majesty is far-sighted. Perhaps he will find something. Will Father know? And asked suspiciously. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. The king seemed harmless, but after all, he was someone who had been at the peak of power for most of his life. Naturally, his depth of vision was not something that ordinary people could compare to. The motorcade returned to the palace. Alex's sports car also followed. He was a frequent guest of the palace and wasn't stopped. And, wait for me. Alex was out of breath as he chased after her. Why are you following me again? And asked helplessly. Alex glared fiercely at Tang Zheng and said, I'm afraid that he will hurt you, so of course I'm here to protect you. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was too lazy to waste his breath arguing with this brainless fellow. The group walked into the palace and found that Mu Hongyin was in a daze with a worried expression. Tang Zheng quickly walked over. When Alex saw this scene, he really wanted to bring up the old matter and talk about what he saw last night. But when he saw that and didn't seem to care at all, he swallowed the words back down. After all, he wasn't really an idiot. He still knew how to weigh the pros and cons. If he brought up the old matter, he was afraid that it would make him even more unhappy. Then he would be directly kicked out of the palace. But he stared at Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyin without blinking, as if he wanted to find any clues about the two of them. Big Sister Mu, what happened? Why are you standing here in a daze? Hearing Tang Zheng's voice, Mu Hongyin seemed to wake up from a dream. Ah, you're back. After hesitating for a moment, she said, there was a little problem. Today, Mr. Bruce and I went to do something that didn't go well. And? Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. Didn't His Majesty vow that everything was ready and that he only needed to take over the relevant industries? How could there be a problem? Let's go to the room to talk. There were many people around and Alex was a brainless person. Of course, he couldn't go into detail here. Young Master Tang, His Majesty invites you. Bruce walked over and interrupted the two's conversation as he courteously invited them. Your Highness, His Majesty also wants you to go with him. Tang Zheng nodded and said, Big Sister Mu, you've been tired all day. Go back to your room and rest first. I'll talk to you in detail later. He knew that the king summoned him to talk about the assassination. Time was tight, so he decided to go see the king first. Seeing that Tang Zheng and En were about to leave, Alex hurriedly called out, I'll go with you. Bruce stopped him with a smile and said, Young Master Alex, His Majesty only invited young Master Tang and Her Highness the Princess. No one else is allowed to disturb them. I'm worried that Tang Zheng will harm En. Alex refuted with conviction. Bruce was still smiling and his expression didn't change in the slightest as he said, Young Master Alex doesn't need to worry about this. This is the Imperial Palace. No one can do bad things to Princess En here. Although Alex was extremely anxious, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only keep saying, Tang Zheng doesn't have good intentions. You must be on guard against him. You don't need to worry about this, Bruce politely replied. But in his heart he was saying that someone had already confessed that you were the real culprit behind the scenes. You still dared to come here. We should be careful of you. Bruce quietly gave a meaningful glance to the guards around him. Alex had already been quietly surrounded, but he was completely unaware. He just kept looking at Tang Zheng and An's backs. He was extremely anxious. Tang Zheng and En saw the king. The king's face was dark, but when he saw An, he revealed a trace of gentleness. And it's good to see that you're okay. And hugged the king and said, Father, I almost couldn't see you again. Fortunately, Tang Zheng saved me. You should thank him for this. But you are also responsible for today's matter. Why did you sneak out? The king was not so easily fooled. He immediately got to the point and hugged the king's arm and acted like a spoiled child. With so many people following us, how can we appreciate the real beauty? Tang Zheng came from afar, so we must let him see the real face of our country. This is the hospitality that you have always taught me. Looking at the eloquent An, the king shook his head and said, I can't win against you, but this is really too dangerous. Don't worry. As long as Tang Zheng is here, no one can hurt me, and said solemnly. The king did not comment and said to Tang Zheng, You saved En again. I don't know how to thank you. Annie is my friend, so this is what I should do. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, did not take the credit for himself as he lightly said. The king could not help but secretly praise, but his face gradually became serious. You know the details. I heard that you went to confront Alex? Yes, Alex admitted that he did it. But Tang Zheng thought that I was wrong and said that it was not Alex who did it, and said with grievance. Chapter 920. The king was very surprised, because Tang Zheng's judgment was the same as his. But his judgment was based on his understanding of the situation in Europe. Tang Zheng was a foreign monk, so how could his judgment be so accurate? He looked at Tang Zheng curiously and asked, Why do you think so? Tang Zheng shrugged and told him his thoughts. The more the king listened, the brighter his eyes became. In the end, he praised from the bottom of his heart, "Amazing. You hit the nail on the head," and looked at Tang Zheng in surprise and said, "What's wrong with your brain? Why didn't I think of it? You thought of so many things?" Tang Zheng is calm in the face of trouble. If he were like you and questioned them without thinking about anything, he would have fallen into the enemy's trap, the king said earnestly. If Tang Zheng did not stop them, with Anne's temper, she would definitely have a direct conflict with Alex. That would make things worse and become a mess. This was what the mastermind wanted to see. The king would definitely become enemies with the Rothschild family, which would not be a good thing for the royal family or even the entire country. The Rothschild family played a vital role in Europe's economy. If they rashly offended the Rothschild family, Sweden would definitely suffer a heavy blow. Not greater than as the king of a country, he would definitely not take such a risk. Hearing this, Anne lowered her head in shame and said, "I was just angry. Besides, Alex admitted it himself, so I didn't think too much about it. It's not like you don't know Alex's temper. Can you believe everything he says?" Anne pursed her lips and did not say anything more. Since Alex is not the mastermind, who could it be? Tang Zheng asked. Hearing this, Annie also looked at her father curiously. The king pondered for a moment and said, "I don't know yet. If your majesty and the Rothschild family become enemies, who will benefit the most?" Tang Zheng changed the question. "It's hard to say because there are too many people who will benefit." "Oh, too much?" "Yes, apart from my country, everyone else will benefit." Tang Zheng was slightly taken aback. The range was too large, and it was really difficult to determine. "Where are the mercenaries who confessed? I'll interrogate him." Since the other party was not telling the truth, Tang Zheng was prepared to use the soul-searching technique. The king had a difficult expression on his face as he said, "They're already dead. All the captured mercenaries are dead. Their brains were installed with miniature bombs that were remotely detonated by someone." Another bomb? Tang Zheng was shocked. The mastermind behind this was not an ordinary kind of ferocious person. He actually used this kind of method to control these mercenaries. The culprit didn't want them to continue investigating. "Don't worry, I have already sent a large number of professionals to investigate this matter. There will definitely be a day when the truth will come to light." The king was not discouraged and said confidently, "All right, that's the only way. And Alex is also here. Don't be so cold to him. Explain the misunderstanding clearly. In addition, I will contact his family and explain the stakes of this matter. They will definitely not stand idly by." The king warned. Tang Zheng and Anne retreated. From afar, they saw Alex surrounded by the crowd. Disperse. Although Anne was unwilling, she did not want the conflict to escalate. She dismissed the crowd. "And Tang Zheng didn't do anything to you, right?" Alex did not care that he was surrounded by so many people. He only cared about Anne's safety. "It's none of your business. There's nothing else for you to do here. You can go back by yourself." And unhappily gave the order to leave. "And there are still some misunderstandings between the two of us. I'll treat you to dinner as an apology, okay?" Although Alex was furious yesterday, at this moment, his anger was gradually subsiding. Moreover, he already knew that Anne was attacked by an assassin. He was even more reluctant to be angry with her, and did not appreciate it and directly refused. Tang Zheng turned around and left. He wanted to find Mu Hongyan and ask her what had happened. "Tang Zheng, where are you going?" And turned around and followed. "I'm going back to my room to rest." Tang Zheng did not want her to follow and said directly, and looked at him and stopped. She could not follow him back to his room. If she did, Alex would probably go crazy on the spot. Tang Zheng knocked on Mu Hongyan's door. Mu Hongyan's charming face appeared from behind the door. "Sister Mu, I'm here." Tang Zheng closed the door with a smile on his face. "Are you okay today? I heard that you were attacked by an assassin." Mu Hongyan's hand groped him a few times and asked with concern, "You'll know if you check it out." Tang Zheng said with an evil smile, "You're not serious again." Mu Hongyan quickly retracted her hand and glared at him. "Let's talk about serious business." "Okay, let's talk about serious business." Tang Zheng said while lying on the wide and soft bed with his hands behind his head. Let's talk about serious business. Why are you lying on the bed? Who said that lying on the bed can't talk about serious business? After experiencing so many things today, I'm tired and want to lie down for a while. Tang Zheng said lazily. Mu Hongyin was helpless. Since the relationship between the two changed, Tang Zheng became more and more unscrupulous in front of her. But she did not dislike it. If it was someone else, she would have kicked them out of bed. Sister Mu, come and lie down. Let's talk slowly. Tang Zheng looked at her wearing a small suit, a tight skirt, and black stockings. She stood in front of him and could not help but move his index finger. He patted the position next to him and said, a mature woman had another kind of charm that was irresistible. Every frown, every smile, and every occasional small action could evoke the flames in the bottom of one's heart. Without a doubt, Mu Hongyin was such a woman. Otherwise, Long Tingyu would not have disregarded human relations and had improper thoughts about his sister-in-law. Mu Hongyin hesitated for a moment, but still sat on the edge of the bed obediently. Tang Zheng hugged her and lay on the bed together. Ah, don't be like this. It's not dark yet. Mu Hongyin exclaimed in a low voice. I'm not doing anything. Tang Zheng laughed evilly. At this time, Tian Chanzi had not returned, so even if he did something, no one would notice. However, he was not that thirsty after all. He suppressed the flames in his heart and cleverly put a hand under her clothes. Don't. Mu Hongyin's entire body went limp and turned into a pile of mud. She did not know why she was so sensitive when facing Tang Zheng. Perhaps it had something to do with the difference in their identities. She exhaled like orchids and weakly stopped him. Don't move. Ah, listen to me. Tang Zheng's hand found its destination, so he did not push it further. He said, I'm listening. Go ahead. Mu Hongyin was helpless and could only restrain her restless heart. She weakly said, when Bruce and I went to take over the related industries today, we encountered a big problem. Someone had taken action before us, and many of the industries were taken over by someone else. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. He could not help but pinch his hand hard. Mu Hongyin's entire body trembled, and she cried out. Her face was so red that it was about to drip water. I'm sorry, I hurt you. Tang Zheng quickly apologized. It's okay. Mu Hongyin wished she could find a hole to crawl into. That kind of slight pain made her feel a strange kind of stimulation. Tang Zheng's face became serious and said, You said that those industries were taken by someone else? But it's only a part of them. We still took over a part of them. After all, Rockefeller's industries are too big. Mu Hongyin took a deep breath and suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. What did Bruce say? He also found it very strange. Because some time ago, they specially sorted out these industries. At that time, there was no movement. Who would have thought that in just a few days, they would change owners? Moreover, it was under their eyes without a sound. This is very strange. Mu Hongyin slightly wrinkled her brows. She gradually adapted to Tang Zheng's restless hands and immersed herself in business. Tang Zheng didn't know much about business. When he was discussing with the king and several other royal families in Europe, they provided a set of strategies that were said to be very professional. As long as Nicholas died and Rockefeller declined, they could use that strategy to take over Rockefeller's industries. Even if the Atlantic Empire tried to stop them, it would not be of much use. Later, Mu Hongyin made a special trip to Sweden and talked with them for a long time. With a professional view, she approved of their method. In fact, Rockefeller's industries were too many and spread across many countries around the world. This method was very complicated. It required a very strong foundation to succeed. The Swedish royal family could barely do this with their own strength, but they did not expect that the cooked duck would fly away. Someone must have stirred up trouble and intercepted it. Can you find out who played a role in it? Mu Hongyin shook her head. I can't find out at the moment. Since the other party dared to do it, they must be careful. It's not easy to find out immediately. This doesn't look like an assassination. Although I don't understand business, after all, this kind of operation is very complicated. It's easier to leave clues. I don't believe that they didn't leave any traces. In addition, in the end, It will be clear at a glance whose hands those industries will fall into. Whoever benefits will naturally be the one stirring up trouble. Tang Zheng thought for a while and analyzed in an orderly manner. Looking at him frowning and analyzing in an orderly manner, Mu Hongyan could not help but be stunned. That kind of strong self-confidence made her heart flutter. Men were most charming when they were serious. There was no doubt that Tang Zheng was very charming at this moment. This kind of temperament that was in control of the whole situation was very moving. Seeing that Mu Hongyan did not respond for a long time, Tang Zheng looked down and found that she was lying in his arms, looking up at him in a daze. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." Mu Hongyan panicked. She was not a little girl. Why was she so infatuated? She was so embarrassed and quickly lowered her head. That shy look made Tang Zheng's head hot. He subconsciously hugged her, turned over, pressed her on top of him, and kissed her. Chapter 9:21. The two bodies tossed and turned on the bed, rolling in the waves. The sunset outside the window shone down on the waves, making them look like red waves. Deliberately suppressed cries echoed in the room, sometimes high and sometimes low, like the most moving song of a lark. In the waves, occasionally a piece of tender lotus-like skin would be revealed, captivating the soul. The battle was very intense, evenly matched. In the end, with a loud cry, everything returned to normal. Tang Zheng gasped for breath, hugging the naked Mu Hongyan as he laid on the bed. Mu Hongyan was like a docile kitten lying on his broad chest, her face flushed red and her eyes filled with amorous feelings. Her breath was like orchids, her heart unable to calm down for a long time. She deeply stared at him, the corners of her mouth rising into a faint, satisfied smile. Her body was like the earth that had been dry for a long time, once again glowing with vitality. Her entire person was glowing. Compared to before, there was a trace of a woman's unique charm. Tang Zheng was satisfied, holding her waist, his large hand gently sliding over her waist. "You really are bad." Mu Hongyan did not think that she would really fall like this. All kinds of feelings welled up in her heart. Hee, big sister Mu seems to like my naughtiness. Tang Zheng's mouth slightly rose, as he said with an evil smile. "Is proportional to, you're not allowed to say it." Mu Hongyan quickly buried her head in his chest. Tang Zheng smiled and changed the topic, saying, "Big sister Mu, last time you fell into the hands of the enemy, it was my fault. So I am going to teach you a cultivation method, so you have the strength to protect yourself." "Really?" Mu Hongyan raised her head in surprise. She had been thinking about this problem, but she was too embarrassed to take the initiative to ask. "Of course, you are now my woman. How could I bear to let you suffer the slightest harm?" "Who is your woman? You're not ashamed." "I did not agree." Mu Hongyan said against her heart. "Is that so? Then let's try again. See if you are my woman." Tang Zheng flipped onto the horse. Mu Hongyan cried out and quickly begged for mercy. "I surrender." "Then are you my woman?" Tang Zheng stared straight at her and asked aggressively. Mu Hongyan's face was like a peach blossom. She lightly bit her teeth and said, "You only know how to bully me." Seeing that Tang Zheng was about to make a move again, she quickly said, "Yes, I am." Tang Zheng laughed in satisfaction and hugged her tightly in his arms, saying, "If you are my woman, then be obedient. I will now teach you the cultivation method. Listen carefully." Mu Hongyan hurriedly nodded. A sweet feeling welled up in her heart as she quietly listened to Tang Zheng's words. What Tang Zheng taught her was a set of wondrous incantations. This set of techniques was obtained from the Langya Pavilion and was very suitable for women to cultivate. "Elder Sister Mu, you started late, so I don't plan to let you cultivate step by step. Instead, I'll directly help you change your tendons and cleanse your marrow to help you. This process may be a little painful, so bear with it." Mu Hongyan firmly nodded her head. "Come, I'm not afraid." Her character was very tenacious. All these years, she had endured many grievances and pain, so how could she be afraid? This was something that Tang Zheng had no choice but to do. She was old and had already passed the best time to cultivate. Starting from the beginning would be too slow. Tang Zheng wanted her to have the ability to protect herself. Of course, he would not let her cultivate step by step. Thus, he simply changed her tendons and cleansed her marrow. However, he was not as powerful as the 100-change Star Lord. Back then, he had directly raised Junko from the early Xiantian stage to the 9th grade Xiantian stage. The two sat down cross-legged facing each other. At first, Mu Hongyan was a little embarrassed. However, seeing that Tang Zheng did not have any distracting thoughts in his eyes, she gradually abandoned all distracting thoughts and focused her mind. The two's hands were pressed against each other. Tang Zheng's innate qi entered her body little by little and wandered through her limbs and bones. The impurities in her body were expelled from her pores by the innate qi. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat. She clenched her teeth but did not make a sound. This process was not simple. To be honest, it was a little painful. Tang Zheng looked at her suffering appearance. Although his heart ached, he did not soften. This was for her own good. She had to suffer the most in order to rise above others. The sun had already set, and night had fallen. The work of changing tendons and marrow had just been completed. Mu Hongyan opened her eyes. Before she had time to feel the condition of her body, she cried out in alarm, "What is this smell? Why is it a little smelly?" After saying this, she looked down and found that her body was sticky. She cried out in alarm, "What happened to me?" Tang Zheng looked at her with a smile and said, "Sister Mu, don't worry. This is to remove the impurities in your body. You'll be fine after taking a bath." "Then I'll go take a bath." Most women loved cleanliness. Mu Hongyan was even more so. She immediately jumped off the bed. She was surprised to find that her body seemed to be much lighter. Many of the occupational diseases from her previous work also disappeared without a trace. "I'll take a bath with you." Tang Zheng hurriedly chased after her. Not long after, other sounds came from the splashing water. After a long time, Mu Hongyan walked out with a face like a peach blossom. Her face was glowing and her skin was even fairer. It was like the highest grade jade. Her hand could not help but gently stroke her skin. It was as smooth as silk. She could not hide the surprise in her eyes and said, "Is this the effect of changing tendons and marrow? I feel like I'm several years younger." "Sister Mu, you were originally very young. I'm already old. How are you old? If you go out, people will definitely ask you if you're still in university." Mu Hongyan glared at him but could not hide the smile on her face. "You only know how to make people happy." "Ah, it's already dark. Let's go out." She was afraid that other people would find out about the two of them. She did not want to give herself away in front of others. Tang Zheng smiled as he watched her put on her clothes in a hurry and said, "Let me help you put it on." "I don't want you to help me. The more you help, the more trouble you'll cause. You'll make it impossible for me to put on my clothes properly," Mu Hongyan said bitterly. "Hurry up and put it on too. Later when you go out quietly, don't let others find out. Do you hear me? Or else what? Or else, don't even think about going to bed next time." Tang Zheng laughed and did not tease her anymore. After putting on his clothes, the two of them had a deep French kiss before he left without anyone noticing. He had just returned to his room for a while when there was a knock on the door, and was standing outside the door. "Where did you go just now?" "No one answered when I knocked on the door." Tang Zheng's expression did not change as he said, "I was in the room. I fell asleep just now, so I didn't hear anything. I'm here to invite you for a meal," and did not think much of it and said casually, "I'll call Big Sister Mu." When she knocked on Mu Hongyan's door and saw her, she was slightly stunned and exclaimed, "Wow, Big Sister Mu, you're so beautiful today." Mu Hongyan felt a little guilty as she touched her face and glanced at Tang Zheng and said, "I don't think so. I didn't suddenly become younger." "You just became younger." "Oh no, you were originally very young. I'm saying that your skin is too good. It's so tender and white with a hint of rosy. When you came back just now, I saw that you were still very tired. How did you suddenly become so radiant? Teach me the trick. Did you use some magical skincare products? I want to try it too." And said in surprise. Beauty had an irresistible allure to women. Even the high and mighty princess could not remain calm. Mu Hongyan bitterly smiled and glanced at Tang Zheng, saying in her heart that if you want to try this method of mine, then go find him. "It's nothing. It's just ordinary skincare products." Maybe it's because your country's climate is too good that I have such a big change. Mu Hongyin's explanation was far-fetched. Is that so? How come I don't feel it? Could it be that I've lived for too long, so I'm slow and can't feel it? And touched her face and muttered to herself in puzzlement, and let's go eat. Don't let them wait too long. Tang Zheng hurriedly came to the rescue to avoid delving too deeply into this issue and revealing a flaw, and held on to Mu Hongyin's hand and warmly said, Big Sister Mu, I'll ask you for guidance in a while. Don't hide anything. Mu Hongyin awkwardly agreed and helplessly glared at Tang Zheng. This is all your fault. Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up in a smile and pretended not to see it. When he arrived at the dining hall, he found that Tian Shanzi was already waiting there. Tian Shanzi looked at Tang Zheng with a meaningful smile. Tang Zheng's heart jumped. Could it be that he just discovered something? I heard that you experienced a lot of things today. Are you very tired? Tian Shanzi asked with a smile. There was clearly a hidden meaning in his words. Tang Zheng pretended not to hear it, but since he knew, then it didn't matter. How can I be as leisurely as you? I don't even know where you ran off to meet with someone. Tang Zheng lightly said. Slander. The king and queen invited everyone to sit down and eat. After the meal, Tian Shanzi pulled Tang Zheng, winked and said in a low voice, You brat, you did bad things when I wasn't here. You are the one who is slandering. Tang Zheng seriously said, Believe it or not, I'll expose you. Expose me. Tang Zheng shrugged. Tian Shanzi curled his lips and said, You brat, your wings are really strong. I can't threaten you. Okay, let's talk about business. You came to Sweden for the Rockefeller industry, and I came for the crystal. We should find the whereabouts of the crystal. Why don't you ask His Majesty? I said you brat are stupid, but you don't believe me. If I ask him directly, will he admit it? Tian Shanzi looked at him with a look of disdain. Since you know this as well, what can you do? Can't you find it yourself? Do you really think I want to meet someone during the day? Am I like you? Doing bad things during the day. Tang Zheng was thick-skinned and deliberately pretended not to understand and asked, What did you find during the day? Of course I found something. According to my investigation, the crystal is hidden in the palace. The energy contained in the crystal is very powerful. It is not easy to completely hide its traces, especially for a master like me. Don't blow your own trumpet. Tian Shanzi glared at Tang Zheng and continued to say, I have narrowed down the scope. The crystal is under the palace, but I don't know where the entrance is. So tonight we have to sneak in when no one is paying attention and take out the crystal without anyone noticing. Oh, you want to steal something from your disciple's house. Who said it was stealing? It was just borrowing. Those things are useless to them. Making the best use of them will not waste them. Tian Shanzi argued. Chapter 9:22. Deep in the night, two figures sneaked into the deepest part of the palace without anyone noticing. The palace had a special basement that was not open to outsiders, but it was not a problem for these two daring fellows. After exploring for a while, they found the entrance. However, a group of armed guards stood guard at the entrance, making it impossible for them to force their way in. They wanted to sneak in without anyone noticing. The two looked at each other and Tian Shanzi said, You go and lead them away. Why me? Because I'm your senior. Respect the old and love the young. Didn't your kindergarten teacher teach you that? Tian Shanzi said with a laugh. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and rushed out in a flash. What's that? The guard only saw a blur in front of his eyes and did not see clearly what it was. He just subconsciously shouted, You guys go over there and take a look. A person who looked like a leader sent out some of his subordinates, but he still stood guard and did not move. Tian Shanzi was stunned. Damn, why didn't you guys chase after them? Why did you guys stay behind? The plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain had failed. Tang Zheng shook off his pursuers and appeared behind Tian Shanzi, asking, How is it? Why aren't you moving? Square root Tian Shanzi pointed at the door and said, Look for yourself. How do I get in? You're really smart. You didn't fall for it. Tang Zheng was surprised. The more cautious the other side was, the more important the thing behind the door was. Actually, We can use illusions to blind their eyes and then sneak in without anyone noticing. But we have to open the door, then they will definitely notice. This is the most difficult part. Tang Jing analyzed. Tianqianzi said helplessly, we can't knock them out and directly charge in, and we can't sneak in without anyone noticing. So what do you think we should do? You still have the nerve to ask me. You were the one who brought this up. Tang Zheng was speechless. Okay, then I'm going in. Don't even think about taking the crystals later, Tianqianzi retorted. Who said I don't want it? Of course I want it. You're the only one who's full, but the whole family isn't hungry. I have so many people around me, and everyone needs crystals. Tang Zheng wouldn't do it. What a miser. Don't you know how to respect the old and love the young? Give me more, Tianqianzi muttered. Hee, you're already so powerful at such an old age. You should leave this kind of improvement opportunity to us, the younger generation. Stop talking nonsense and think of a way. Tang Zheng stared at the group of guards. Just as he was at his wit's end, the door opened. Their pupils constricted as they looked at each other. Then, they stared at the door. A few people in white coats walked out. These people had solemn expressions and tightly knitted brows. Why are there doctors here? Tianqianzi asked curiously. Tang Jing shook his head. These are not doctors. Those who wear white coats are not necessarily doctors, just like those who ride white horses are not necessarily Tang Sung. These are researchers. Look at that old man. I seem to have seen him in a popular science program before. He's a very awesome scientist. Scientist? What are these scientists doing coming out from under the palace in the middle of the night? Tianqianzi was confused. Tang Zheng was also confused. But when he saw the door open, he was overjoyed and said, Don't worry about them. This is the best time for us to sneak in. Let's go. He quickly cast an illusion, which was equivalent to invisibility, and took the lead to rush towards the door. Boy, wait for me. Tianqianzi followed suit. Almost at the moment the door closed, he rushed in with Tang Zheng. Bang! Behind them came the sound of the door closing. A feeling of isolation hit their hearts. The two subconsciously looked back and found that the door was very heavy. It was almost impossible to move it with just the strength of their hands. Don't worry about the door. Let's go forward first, Tianqianzi said. Tang Jing nodded and looked around. After confirming that there were no cameras, he was relieved and said in a low voice, This is the most secret place, but there are no cameras. This means that His Majesty the King does not want the things here to be made public. He did not even leave behind a single image. Did you see those scientists just now? They were searched when they left. This is definitely not normal. This old king is quite cautious. Unfortunately, in front of me, it's useless to be cautious. However, you're right. It makes sense for him to be so cautious. After all, the crystal is too important. Tang Zheng did not refute, but in his heart another thought emerged. Crystal is very important to cultivators, but for ordinary people, it is of little value. It is not worth such a tight protection. However, for the time being, he could not figure out the reason. He could only continue to move forward. The basement was very spacious. Even the entrance passage was like a main road. The ventilation was good, and there was not a trace of cold or damp air. The two carefully moved forward. Not long after, their eyes lit up as they came to a huge laboratory. This was a laboratory set up in the basement. It was empty. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that those scientists must be working in this laboratory. But the key was why the laboratory was set up under the royal palace. Was it necessary to hide like this? He shook his head. He really could not figure it out. Tianqianzi reluctantly said, It seems that I have to admit that you are right. Those people are scientists, not doctors. Looking at the bottles and jars in the laboratory, as well as all kinds of cutting-edge instruments, Tang Jing analyzed. The experiments they are doing here must be top secret. Tianqianzi did not care. I don't care what experiments they are. I only want the crystal. Then let's split up and look. There are so many cabinets here. I don't know where the crystal is hidden. Tianqianzi waved his hand and walked to the left. So Tang Zheng walked to the right. Looking at the dazzling array of bottles and jars and instruments, Tang Zheng's eyes were dark. He simply could not see what the research was. However, the most important thing was to find the crystal. He began to rummage through the cabinets. But after rummaging for a long time, he still could not find the crystal. When he used his energy to investigate, he could clearly feel that there was a huge energy source hidden in the basement. It was the same as the crystal. So, the crystal must be in this laboratory. Tang Zheng's attention was suddenly attracted by a thick cable on the ground. The cable was connected to a wall in the laboratory. This cable was connected to a huge instrument. On the screen above, there was a ripple jumping, very much like a heartbeat monitor in a hospital. But the jumping curve was obviously much faster than a human's heartbeat. The rising and falling waves were continuous. Tang Zheng had always been very curious about the research direction of this laboratory. When he saw the ripple on the screen, he had an idea. He turned around and walked along the cable. When he came to the wall, the cable penetrated from the ground, and in front of him was a huge iron door. What was behind the iron door? Tang Zheng, hurry up and find the crystal. What are you doing there? Facing the wall to reflect on your mistakes? Tian Chanzi saw Tang Zheng in a daze and kept urging him. It's really strange. The crystal is clearly here. Why can't I find it? Tang Zheng moved and shouted, Tian Chanzi, come here. I think there is a situation here. What's the situation? Tian Chanzi rushed over like a gust of wind. He also saw the iron door and said in surprise, You think the crystal is behind the door? Tang Zheng shook his head and said he did not know. Open the door and everything will be clear. Tian Chanzi could not wait. He pressed his hands on the iron door and pushed with all his strength. The iron door made a creaking sound, but it was not pushed open. Hey, this is strange. I don't believe I can't push it open. Tian Chanzi stretched his body and angrily tried to push the iron door. Haha. Tang Zheng burst out laughing. Tian Chanzi turned around and looked at him. What are you laughing at? Tian Chanzi, I'm laughing at how stupid you are. Tang Zheng could not help but say, You are the stupid one. Tian Chanzi said in a bad mood. Tang Zheng shook his head and directly pressed a button next to the iron door. The iron door opened. So it was that simple? Tian Chanzi was stunned. Why didn't you say so earlier? Tang Zheng laughed and said with a shrug, I didn't have time to say it, and you already used all your strength. Who can you blame? You brat. You are deliberately making fun of me. Tian Chanzi helplessly glared at him. Let's see what's inside first. Tang Zheng pointed inside and walked in. Tian Chanzi also hurriedly followed in. The space behind the iron door was not big, but there was an amber-like thing standing in front of them. A surge of energy hit them in the face. Tang Zheng could not help but take a deep breath. He felt refreshed, but his eyes were wide open as he looked at the scene in front of him. Too shocking. This was not amber, but a crystal as tall as a wall. The two crystals that the king gave them were not even worth mentioning. This was a treasure trove. Tian Chanzi also opened his eyes wide. After a long while, he laughed and scolded. Damn, why is the king so stingy? I am his daughter's master, and he only gave me a small one. It's like a drop of water in the ocean. Tian Chanzi could not help but extend his hand and press it on the crystal. Whoosh whoosh. Powerful energy gushed out from the crystal, forming a gust of wind on Tian Chanzi's arm. His expression became extremely strange. Back then, when he was in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, he was lucky enough to reach the 9th stage of yuanying. Later on, he used the crystal to consolidate his cultivation, but when he wanted to go further, he did not succeed in entering the semi-god realm. But at this moment, after absorbing this energy, he felt that every pore of his was filled with innate qi. The innate qi surged, and waves of thunder came out from his body. The air around his body surged, creating circles of ripples. Tian Chanzi was wild with joy and laughed. My cultivation is about to break through the semi-god realm. I'm finally going to succeed. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and circulated his energy to digest this huge amount of energy and prepare for the upcoming breakthrough. Tang Zheng was also happy for him. This way, he would have the help of 2 experts of the semi-god realm. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the cause of all this, but suddenly discovered that the crystal had actually changed. Veins that looked like blood vessels appeared on the crystal. Chapter 9:23. The veins on the crystal were very clear and were similar to blood vessels. There was a liquid slowly flowing inside. What is this? Tang Zheng was shocked, but he found that the crystal was changing more and more. Soon, it became completely transparent. There's something inside the crystal. Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he saw an unknown creature appear inside the crystal. He found that the cables were forked into strands and attached to the crystal. Could the wavy lines on the monitor be the heartbeat of this unknown creature? It was alive. He suppressed his violently beating heart and stared at it. He had never seen this creature before, and he was sure that it was not a creature of this world. It was about the same size as an adult, but it was a four-legged reptile. It had a very long tail that was like a sharp hook. The strangest thing was that its eyes were always open and reflected Tang Zheng's figure. Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he stared at those eyes. It was as if his soul was about to be sucked into them. What are you standing there for? Tian Chanzi's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Tang Zheng's thoughts were interrupted. He turned his head to Tian Chanzi and said, Tian Chanzi, quickly look at the East Delta 3. West, do you know what this is? What are you talking about? Let me tell you a piece of good news. You'll be jealous to death. I've already broken through to the deity transformation realm. If I meet the 100 Faces Star Sovereign in the future, I won't be completely helpless. Tian Chanzi said excitedly. Tang Zheng acted as if he didn't hear him and anxiously urged, Don't talk about yourself. Look inside the crystal. There's an unknown creature. What unknown creature? You stinking brat, even if you don't want to congratulate me, you don't have to find such an excuse to avoid me. Tian Chanzi's voice was a bit unhappy. What did you say? You didn't see the unknown creature? Tang Zheng was shocked and quickly turned his head. He couldn't help but cry out, Where's that thing? How come it's gone? It was clearly inside the crystal just now, and there were even vein-like arteries in the crystal. Tang Zheng, are you dazzled by the surprise? Tian Chanzi asked. Tang Zheng firmly shook his head. I'm absolutely not seeing things. Just now, the crystal became transparent, and I saw an unknown creature inside. Seeing that Tang Zheng was so agitated and determined, Tian Chanzi frowned suspiciously. Was that really the case? He stared at the crystal. The crystal was not transparent, and it was no different from what he had seen before. Did you find any clues? Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. Tian Chanzi shook his head as he found nothing. There's something strange about this crystal. Look at the cables connected to it. I suspect that they're used to detect the unknown creature inside the crystal. Moreover, there's a heartbeat, which means that it's a living creature. But I don't know why it was sealed in this crystal. Moreover, I suspect that it's not a creature from our world. Tang Zheng analyzed in an orderly manner. Crystal is rare. It's said that it's an object from the outside world, and the old king also told you that this crystal was brought by a meteorite from outer space. This large crystal must be an object from outer space. If there's really something sealed in it, it must be an object from outer space. Tian Chanzi nodded, agreeing with Tang Zheng's statement. Human exploration of outer space was very limited. According to scientific theory, the creature sealed in this crystal was an alien creature. Human beings had been looking for evidence of the existence of alien creatures, but they didn't expect that the Swedish royal family would find it first. This also explained why the laboratory was built under the royal palace and was under such strict protection. However, this was only a scientific point of view. For Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi, they knew about the big world and the small world. The so-called alien creature was a creature from another big world or small world. This wasn't impossible. After all, the existence of the Outland and the world of ghosts had proven this point. Which world do you think it came from? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes. There are so many big worlds and small worlds. How could I know? However, if we want to find out what it is, it's easy to get it out. I don't think it's that easy, Tang Zheng muttered. If it's really that easy, those scientists would have already gotten it out for research. Why keep it in the crystal? What's difficult for those scientists? Can it be difficult for me, Tian Chanzi? Tian Chanzi smiled proudly and didn't take it seriously. He directly slapped the crystal. The crystal only shook a few times, but it didn't crack as he expected. Huh. Tian Chanzi was surprised. He was very clear that the strength of his palm was enough to break the stone. This crystal was actually so strong. Haha, Tian Chanzi, now you know that it's too early to boast. Tang Zheng laughed. Tian Chanzi's cheeks were red with anger. He said bitterly, I don't believe that I can't handle this thing. Tian Chanzi didn't admit defeat. He slapped down again. This time, he used all his strength, but the crystal was still unbreakable. But what was unexpected was that the crystal changed. The blood vessel-like veins appeared again. Tian Chanzi subconsciously stopped and stared at the veins. Although Tang Zheng had seen it once, it was still difficult to hide the shock in his heart when he saw it again. After a while, the crystal became transparent. The unknown creature was vividly displayed in front of him. Heaven Monk's mouth was already wide open as he looked at this thing in disbelief. Especially that pair of eyes, it was firmly attracting people. What kind of monster is this? Tian Chanzi shook his head and exclaimed in surprise. Tang Zheng looked deeply at the unknown creature. He silently asked the inner demons and Qi Yu in his heart. Unfortunately, the two of them didn't know its origin. Although they were powerhouses from ancient times, they were still powerhouses of this world. They didn't know much about other worlds. After all, they hadn't even explored the sky beyond heaven, let alone other worlds. Seeing Tian Chanzi looking at him, Tang Zheng helplessly shrugged and said, I can't answer you. Now you know that this crystal isn't that easy to split open, right? I'm afraid the king had to go through a lot of trouble to get those two crystals. Since they were able to get a little, then we can get a lot more. Tian Chanzi said, unwilling to give up. Tang Zheng looked at the unknown creature and shook his head. No, I don't think we need to cut it open. Since it's a whole, then it has its own reason to exist. Moreover, since you just proved that you can absorb the energy in the crystal, then why do we need to cut it open? If we don't cut it open, then how will we divide the crystal and cultivate? Tian Chanzi asked suspiciously. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. Who said that we can't cultivate if we don't split it? This crystal is dead, but we people are alive. As long as we gather everyone in front of the crystal and absorb the crystal's energy while cultivating, won't the problem be solved? Don't you cultivators have some kind of holy lands? We can also make our own holy lands. Tian Chanzi's eyes lit up and he praised, You little brat, your brain is really clever. This method is feasible, but who do we put the crystal with? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said generously, How about we put it with you? Are you really willing? With this, you can quickly improve your cultivation. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng in surprise. What's there to be reluctant about? You've helped me so much. Moreover, the higher your cultivation, won't I also benefit from it? Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't seem to be duplicitous, Tian Chanzi praised and said, Hey, it's really not a waste of my kindness to you. But you can rest assured that I, Tian Chanzi, am also an open and above-board person. After we go back, we'll find a place to put this crystal, and then everyone can absorb the energy together to cultivate. Tang Zheng himself had Qi Yu's heartblood, so he didn't care much. Suddenly, he thought of a problem and said, When the energy in the crystal is absorbed, the crystal will melt like ice. Finally, when we finish absorbing the crystal's energy, the crystal will completely melt. Then wouldn't this thing be free? Hey, what you said is actually a problem. But I don't think it's that powerful. We have so many people. Why should we be afraid of it? Tian Chanzi didn't care. He didn't put it in his eyes at all. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. This creature from another world couldn't be careless, but for the time being, he didn't have a better way. He could only improve his cultivation. Even if there was a problem in the future, he would have a stronger strength to deal with it. While the two of them were talking, the crystal returned to its original appearance, and the unknown creature disappeared without a trace. Tian Chanzi didn't hold back. With a wave of his hand, he wanted to put the crystal into his sumaru bag. Hey, strange. Why isn't there any reaction? Tian Chanzi's eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Why isn't there any reaction? Tang Zheng was also very surprised. Tian Chanzi stared at the crystal, somewhat anxiously said, "It's really against me today. I don't believe it." Tian Chanzi held his breath, focused his mind, and cast a spell, trying to put the crystal into his Sumeru bag. But the crystal still didn't have any reaction. The Sumeru bag absorbed all things, and this had never happened before. It was too strange. Tian Chanzi scratched his head in distress and said, "Could it be that the level of my Sumeru bag is too low?" His Sumeru bag was an Earth-grade magic treasure, and its divine ability was already very extraordinary. It could even take in a heaven-grade magic treasure, but it couldn't deal with this crystal. Tian Chanzi was very angry. This crystal was specifically against him. He used all his skills and sweated, but there was no reaction. He was about to go crazy. "Damn crystal, why is my Sumeru bag not working? Are you trying to anger me to death?" Tian Chanzi fiercely kicked the crystal a few times and roared angrily. This was like seeing a delicious meal, but there was no way to eat it. This feeling was really unpleasant. Looking at his helpless appearance, Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. "Tian Chanzi, why are you so angry with the crystal? Let's think of a way. We can't just not take it, right?" Chapter 9:24. Looking at his suspicious eyes, Tang Zheng's heart moved and he said, "You can't, but that doesn't mean I can't. Don't brag too much. Let's try it and we'll know." Tang Zheng walked over, casting a spell, and the Sumeru world on his wrist sparkled. Tian Chanzi was suddenly shocked, patting his head as he suddenly realized, "How could I forget about your Sumeru world? Sumeru world is a heaven-grade magic treasure. One grade higher than my Sumeru bag, maybe?" He blushed a little. Tang Zheng's mind was completely focused, and with a so, the crystal disappeared. He immediately saw the crystal in Sumeru world. "Haha, you really can." Tang Zheng was very happy. Tian Chanzi shook his head, depressed. "Is there any justice? My cultivation is so much higher than his, but he still beat me." Looking at his depressed appearance, Tang Zheng patted him on the shoulder and said, "Tian Chanzi, don't be discouraged. Can't you have a bit of the demeanor of a senior? You keep showing off. Isn't it just a heaven-grade storage magic treasure? It won't be long. I will also upgrade my Sumeru bag to a heaven-grade magic treasure." Tian Chanzi said faintly, looking like a bullied little wife. Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. "AI, you got lucky again. This crystal is in your Sumeru world. You can absorb as much energy as you want. Your cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds." Tian Chanzi shook his head and said enviously, "Anyway, the outside door is closed. We can't go out. We have to wait for those scientists to come in tomorrow. Then we can leave without anyone knowing. There are still a few hours. I'll take out the crystal. We can both absorb it to improve our cultivation." Tang Zheng said generously, "Your spirit is commendable. You didn't eat it alone." Tian Chanzi praised, "But I just broke through. I still need to consolidate. I don't need to rush to absorb the energy." "Oh, then I won't be polite. You can guard me." "You little brat, you're not polite." Tian Chanzi laughed and scolded. "Good. You're now a 9th grade golden core. I want to see if you can break through to the Yuanying realm in one go. Don't look down on me if you can. Why can't I?" Tang Zheng was full of confidence. "Then I'll wait and see." Tang Zheng's heart sank. The crystal was in Sumeru world. Even if he didn't touch it, he would still be able to absorb the energy inside. As soon as he thought of this, a torrential surge of energy gathered in his body like a great river. This energy's chi. Its energy's energy, Chi's energy was Chi's chi. SSSSS, SS, T, S's cheese. At the same time, he also found that once he absorbed the energy, the crystal would become transparent, and the unknown creature inside would stand lifelike in front of him. He didn't care. His mind was focused on cultivation, but he didn't notice the two deep and mysterious eyes rolling. "Hey, Chiyu, you're really lucky, young man. With this crystal, you don't need to keep absorbing your blood. You can preserve your strength," the inner demon suddenly said. Chiyu was shocked and angrily retorted, "Inner demons? What nonsense are you talking about?" He was afraid that Tang Zheng would continue to have ideas about the blood. The inner demons didn't intend to let him go and continued. I'm not talking nonsense. If your blood is fine, then it's possible for you to occupy the young man's body in the future, right? You're trying to drive a wedge between us. If you let me escape, I'll kill you at all costs. Chi-Yu angrily shouted. Do you dare? If you kill me, I'll occupy your body, haha. This seems to be a good deal. You didn't dare to do this in the past. After so many years, could it be that your courage has grown? I don't think so. The inner demon's voice was full of provocation, making Chi-Yu furious, but there was nothing he could do. Tang Zheng heard these words. Of course, he understood the inner demon's intentions, and also understood Chi-Yu's thoughts. Although he had the crystal, he wouldn't give up on absorbing the blood. After all, this could weaken Chi-Yu's strength, but he also had to be careful of the inner demon's strength. If he could find a way to weaken the inner demons, then it would be perfect. Weakening them together, they wouldn't be able to jump around. One day, he could completely eliminate these two hidden dangers. Tang Zheng's thoughts moved, and he quickly focused his mind, concentrating on cultivating. The Jindan was getting bigger and bigger, becoming the size of a fist, and the Jindan was turning from solid to liquid little by little. He wasn't surprised, as he had already asked Tian Chanzi about this process, and understood that this was the transformation of the Jindan. After a while, the Jindan finally completely melted, turning into a liquid, just like melted liquid gold. All of this was an autonomous process, but the next step had to be controlled by Tang Zheng, as this was related to the strength of the condensed yuanying. He used his mind to control this mass of liquid, and continued to absorb the true qi for the liquid to shape. The liquid was stretched little by little, condensing into a human brain, but the face of this brain was still very blurry, and the face couldn't be seen clearly. At the same time, the torso also condensed, and the limbs began to spread outwards little by little. Time passed little by little, and after a long time, the initial human shape was finally successful. Tang Zheng wasn't too happy, because this was only the first step of the long journey, and there was still a lot of work to be done. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked Tian Chanzi to protect him. If this process was interrupted, the yuanying would collapse, and there would be no hope for advancement. In the worst case, the Jindan would be destroyed, and he would die immediately. For a practitioner, this was a more important step than condensing the Jindan, and he had to be more careful. The next step was more delicate work. He began to control the true qi to attack the various parts of the yuanying, gradually making each part no different from a real person, and even the lines on the palm appeared. This was a delicate sculpting process, just like sculpting a puppet, except that he was sculpting yuanying. Gradually, the outline of the face became clear, and it turned out to be a miniature version of Tang Zheng. Yes, yuanying was a miniature version of a practitioner. Once the yuanying was mastered, one would have all kinds of supernatural powers in the future. Phew! It was a success. Tang Zheng lightly panted, his brain tense, and he was in a state of high tension. Even his vest was soaked. A yuanying identical to Tang Zheng appeared. However, it was only the appearance that was the same, but the inside of the body was different. His future work was to transform the yuanying into a yuanying that was identical to himself, and this was the entire cultivation content of the yuanying realm. When the yuanying was transformed into a yuanying that was identical to himself, he would successfully cross the yuanying realm and reach the soul formation realm. The soul formation realm was to transform the yuanying into something other than its appearance, and to give it intelligence. Yuanying was equivalent to a new life, and it was connected to the mind of the practitioner. When the soul formation realm ended, and the practitioner entered the Mahayana realm, the yuanying would be able to leave the body of the practitioner and roam the world. This was equivalent to a real clone, an extension of the mind, and it was very powerful. Back then, the 100 Faces Star-Lord had created many clones. They seemed real, but in fact, they were just appearances. Each clone could not be compared to the real body and could not reach the strength of the real body. However, yuanying was different. The yuanying could be the same strength as the real body. When the yuanying cultivated, the real body could also enjoy the increase in power. This was why when two people cultivated together, it would naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, the further one cultivated, the more difficult it would be. Without the help of the yuanying, It would be difficult to cultivate in the Mahayana realm. There's still a long way to go. Tang Zheng could not help but sigh to himself. However, looking at himself that was identical to himself, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The strength of the Yuanying was related to the carving skills of the cultivator. Tang Zheng cultivated the flying immortals from heaven, which was very helpful in controlling his true qi, so he could control his true qi to do such fine work. If a carver were to do this, I'm afraid it would be better. Tang Zheng was whimsical. However, as soon as this thought appeared, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed in his mind, and he was stunned. The ancient clear heaven scroll, which had been silent, had a reaction. The ancient clear heaven scroll was a set of vital cultivation techniques that led him on the path of cultivation. It was also the foundation of his cultivation. Ever since he started cultivating it, there was nothing too unusual about the ancient clear heaven scroll. Nevertheless, when this thought flashed through his mind, the ancient clear heaven scroll underwent a huge change. The words on the ancient scroll floated up and combined with each other to form another set of words. What's this? Tang Zheng was really shocked. He did not miss a single word and read the text very carefully. He could not calm down. This was because the text was a set of methods to sculpt the Yuanying. Moreover, there was a set of carving knife techniques that was so superb that he was almost stunned. Although he was not a carving master, he could tell that this set of knife techniques had the ability to transform something rotten into something magical. He was just envious of a carving master, and now this superb carving knife technique appeared. He wondered why he was so lucky. The ancient clear heaven scroll has never changed before. Could it be that it will only change after I reach the Yuanying realm? He was a smart person. After carefully thinking about it, he gradually understood. So it turns out that the ancient clear heaven scroll only exerts its power at the back. Only when my cultivation reaches the nascent soul stage will it gradually reveal its mystical aspects. No wonder Heaven Monk and the demon clan fought to the death for it. If he told this news to Tian Chanzi, who knew what he would think? Tang Zheng mischievously thought. He suppressed the messy thoughts in his mind. Because the promotion process was not over, he had to guide the true qi to enter the Yuanying realm. Only when the true qi entered the Yuanying realm could he truly step into the Yuanying realm. The true qi entered the Yuanying realm. The Yuanying realm was formed by the condensation of the golden core, so it was naturally golden. Without any warning, a ball of true fire in the brain sea of consciousness quickly entered the dantian along the meridians. The purple true fire and true qi merged into one and entered the Yuanying realm. Chapter 9:25. The golden light around the Yuanying gradually faded, and a purple light began to spread from the inside out. Tang Zheng's lips curled into a smile. His dantian had gradually transformed into a purple palace, and this purple color was a sign of the transformation. Now that his purple palace had reached the large success stage, the Yuanying no longer had a trace of gold, and was now a light purple color. In the future, the higher his cultivation, the deeper the purple color of the Yuanying would become. Looking at the purple light emitting from the inside out of the Yuanying, Tang Zheng smiled with satisfaction. It was a success. He had successfully advanced to the first-grade Yuanying realm. Hey, you little brat, you really succeeded. First-grade Yuanying realm, this crystal's energy is truly powerful. Tian Chanzi exclaimed in admiration. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said, "That's because my innate talent is extraordinary. Didn't you just say that it was impossible for me to succeed?" Cough, cough. Tian Chanzi awkwardly coughed and said with a guilty conscience, "Horses can make mistakes, and people can make mistakes. I also have times when I make mistakes. Just you wait, there will be a day when I surpass you." Tang Zheng was full of confidence. Tian Chanzi's face stiffened and said with a guilty conscience, "Don't bite off more than you can chew." Although he said that, with Tang Zheng's terrifying cultivation speed, that day really wouldn't be too far away. Tian Chanzi felt an unprecedented pressure. Tang Zheng chuckled and didn't continue to discourage Tian Chanzi. He said, "It's already morning. The scientists will be back soon. Then let's wait and make preparations." Hee hee, I really want to see their expressions when they discover that the crystal disappeared. Tian Chanzi said with a mischievous smile. Don't play pranks. Those people will definitely be as anxious as ants on a hot pan. His Majesty the King will definitely be furious. Do you think they will suspect us? Tang Jing asked thoughtfully. Tian Chanzi said without thinking. So what if they suspect us? What can he do to us? I am his daughter's master. Since they have no use for the crystals they left behind, wouldn't it be good to give them to their master and make the best use of them? All right, you're very reasonable. The two of them quickly came to the door. Not long after, they saw the door slowly open. The two of them quickly used illusion to become invisible. They quickly passed through the scientists and disappeared without a trace. The two of them secretly returned to their respective rooms. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Mu Hongyan stood outside the door, her face glowing. Last night, she slept a little late because she was both looking forward to it and was afraid. She thought that Tang Zheng would sneak into her room in the middle of the night. But she didn't expect that this guy would actually become obedient, which was really out of her expectations. But even so, he was nourished during the day, and he was able to truly cultivate the wondrous intent art. His mental state was unprecedentedly good. Big Sister Mu, your cultivation has risen really quickly. You've already reached the 6th grade of foundation establishment. Tang Zheng was surprised. He helped Mu Hongyan change her muscles and cleanse her marrow, but it didn't really increase her cultivation. Instead, she had to rely on her own cultivation to fully understand the mysteries of the wondrous intent art and obtain the corresponding cultivation. There was a certain difference between muscle and marrow transformation and wisdom infusion. Wisdom infusion was to directly and forcibly increase a person's cultivation. If the foundation wasn't solid, then it would be very harmful to one's future cultivation. In addition, using wisdom infusion required an extremely high cultivation, but muscle and marrow transformation had a slightly lower cultivation requirement. It only improved a person's physique and increased their cultivation speed. This had a drawback. It was easy to cultivate in the beginning, even easier than many geniuses, but the further one went, the more difficult it would be. Mu Hongyan was the best proof. Her talent was average, but she actually broke through 6 levels in one night. This was enough to make many geniuses feel ashamed of their inferiority. Even if it was Tang Zheng, he was completely outclassed. But in the future, her cultivation would be more difficult than Tang Zheng's. But Tang Zheng was confident that when his cultivation increased in the future, he would be able to find a way to solve this problem. Mu Hongyan happily said, "This is all thanks to you. I never thought that I would have a day like this. This is what you deserve." Big Sister Mu still has to work hard and strive to reach a higher cultivation. I will find a magic weapon for you. Magic weapon? Really? Mu Hongyan's eyes lit up, and then she looked at him with a strange expression. The other people's magic weapons were also given by you, right? Could it be that only after becoming your woman can I have a magic weapon? Tang Zheng almost choked on his own saliva. He never expected that she would ask such a tricky question. He resentfully said, "How could that be? In the past, I always thought that you were honest, but now I know that I was wrong. I saw that Shi, Ding Dang, and Qing Mei all have magic weapons that you gave them. Could it be that they are all your women? Oh, that's not right. There is also Wu. She is not a cultivator, so she doesn't have a magic weapon. But I heard that you taught her a set of fire underworld divine palm." Stop. Tang Zheng quickly surrendered. This woman's intuition was too terrifying. She actually guessed everything correctly. Even Lu Qingmei was able to guess it, which he did not expect. What? Did I say something wrong? Mu Hongyan asked with a smile that was not a smile. Tang Jing awkwardly said, "Big Sister Mu, don't expose my shortcomings." Mu Hongyan raised her eyebrows and said, "Then let's see if you still dare to bully me in the future." Big Sister Mu, your words wrongly accuse me. I have never bullied you. Tang Zheng complained. Then yesterday you treated me like that. Mu Hongyan's eyes seemed to be rippling with water. Tang Zheng's heart moved. He could not help but grab her hand and said, "That was not bullying." Mu Hongyan's breathing became hurried. She fiercely glared at him and said, "Do you want to die? You dare to mess around in front of the gate. You two woke up so early. and walked over from behind. Mu Hongyan acted as if she had been electrocuted. She quickly retracted her hand and said with a guilty conscience, "I came to find him to discuss work." "You two are so serious. Discussing work so early," and did not pay attention to Mu Hongyan's expression. Her eyes were shining as she stared at Tang Zheng and asked, "Let's go to a new place to play today." "You're still playing? Yesterday you almost lost your life. Don't I have you? You are my knight. No one can even think of harming me." And firmly said, "I'm not that powerful. It's better to be safe than sorry. His Majesty will definitely not let you out. Don't look at me like that. I won't sneak out with you again." Tang Zheng mercilessly refused, and pouted and said unhappily, "Why is there no sentiment at all? Annoying." "Sister Mu, let's talk about business. Today we will continue to receive the corresponding industries. Although there are people stirring up trouble, we cannot panic." Tang Zheng did not pay attention to and instead directly to Mu Hongyan. Mu Hongyan looked deeply at him and said, "I can take care of these things by myself? No, this time the enemy is in the dark and we are in the light. I'm worried that they won't play by the rules and will harm you." Tang Zheng insisted, "Is it that exaggerated? Isn't this just a business operation?" Mu Hongyan disagreed. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "It's not as simple as you think." He suspected that the real culprit who tried to assassinate and yesterday was related to the person who intercepted the goods, because these two matters were too strange. However, this was only a guess and there was no way to prove it. Mu Hongyan saw that he was so insistent and could not say anything more. She had no choice but to nod in agreement. "Then take me with you," and begged, "Will His Majesty allow it? Moreover, haven't you always been clamoring for Tian Chanzi to give you pointers in your cultivation? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In the future, if he slips away again, you won't be able to find him even if you want to." Tang Zheng said. He and Tian Chanzi took the crystal. If and went to ask Tian Chanzi for advice at this time, he would definitely give her pointers without reservation. It was a kind of compensation. Really. Although Anne was a bit unhappy, she was still very interested in cultivation. Her attention was immediately diverted. "Of course, if he doesn't give you pointers with all his heart, I will find him and help you vent your anger." "Okay, I'll go now," and happily left. Mu Hongyan looked meaningfully at Tang Zheng. Her lips curled into a smile and said, "You really know how to coax girls." "I'm doing this for her own good." "How is this coaxing?" I don't know how many women will fall into this big net you weave." Mu Hongyan sighed. Tang Zheng deliberately pretended not to hear and said, "Let's go take care of business." Mu Hongyan did not pursue the matter and let him go for the time being. The two of them went to find Bruce. He was the most knowledgeable about business matters, so naturally he was there. Bruce was standing in front of the king's door. His face was deathly pale. From behind the door came the king's angry voice. Tang Zheng's heart moved. The king must know about the disappearance of the crystal, but he still asked, "Bruce, what happened?" Bruce's face tightened as he said, "Nothing. The matter of the crystal was top secret." How could he tell Tang Zheng? "Oh, that's good. Today we still have to go out. I wonder if it's convenient for you?" Bruce hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll go report to His Majesty and then make a decision." "Okay." Bruce pushed open the door and walked in. Tang Zheng vaguely saw several people in white coats. There were also several guards guarding the laboratory. "What happened?" Mu Hongyan curiously asked. Tang Zheng shook his head. He pretended to be at a loss and said, "I don't know. His Majesty the King has always been gentle and refined. He is very gentlemanly. I've never seen him so angry." Mu Hongyan curiously said. Tang Zheng faintly smiled. Of course the king would be angry. The crystal went missing under the palace's layers of protection. This was indeed a serious matter. If this could happen, then wouldn't it mean that he could be killed in his sleep without anyone knowing? The so-called gentlemanly demeanor would naturally disappear under this kind of fatal threat. The king's face flushed red. The bridge of his nose was bright red. He angrily roared, "If you don't know what happened, then how did you protect it? Can something disappear for no reason?" Everyone trembled in fear. The guards guiltily explained, "Your Majesty, we guarded it closely. If someone really stole the crystal, it would be impossible for them to escape our eyes. That is the truth. Did I wrongly accuse you? The king angrily asked. The guards all lowered their heads. This was something that could not be explained by science. Chapter 9:26. After listening to Bruce's words, the king's anger subsided a little and he said, "Then you go. Remember, if someone is causing trouble, it must not be simple. Find out who is behind this." "Yes, your subordinate understands." Bruce took the order and left. The king looked at Tang Zheng from a distance through the crack in the door and muttered to himself, "There are several royal families in other countries who have long known that I have crystals, and they have been coveting this thing for a long time. Could it be that they are behind this? But their methods are too clever. They did not leave any traces, which is not their style. Your Majesty, this is simply a godlike method. We really can't figure out where we lost," the guard said with annoyance. The king snorted heavily. "Since you don't know where we lost, then investigate and find out the reason." "Yes." The guard retreated as if he had been pardoned, leaving only a few scientists in white coats. The king sat back heavily in his chair and said, "Has your research made no progress?" The scientists in white coats lowered their heads in shame. "Your Majesty, we have tried our best. We have tried many methods, even using lasers, but there was no way to open the crystals. We tried every means to get 2 of them, and we have already given them to your Majesty." The king subconsciously recalled the scene when Tangzhou got the crystals. There was no doubt that crystals were very important to cultivators. These crystals were also very important to the royal family. If there was a way to collect the energy in the crystals, then the level of technology would definitely be a qualitative leap. However, all of this did not succeed. Why can cultivators absorb the energy in the crystals? I should have asked and to try it earlier. He regretted it. In fact, he invited Tian Chanzi to come to Sweden because he had a lot of selfish motives. Ever since he knew that Tang Zheng got rid of Nicholas and pulled down the sword of Damocles that had been hanging over their heads for hundreds of years, the king was very fond of the means of cultivators, and was too weak to explain the essence of cultivators, so he wanted to use Tian Chanzi's means to turn the elites of the Swedish royal family into cultivators. In this way, the country would definitely rise rapidly, and the royal families of European countries would not be his opponents. In the future, it would be easy to fight against the Rothschild family. This was killing many birds with one stone. However, before he could express his intentions to the heaven monk, a series of unimaginable events happened one after another, causing him to be unable to take it all in. He actually did not have the time to talk to the heaven monk alone. Then, "Is there any news about the unknown creature in the crystal?" the king asked, unwilling to give up. The white coats all shook their heads. "We've looked through all the literature, but we've never seen such a creature. This is an extraterrestrial creature. We don't have any relevant information." The king was getting angrier and angrier. He waved his hand to dismiss the crowd and summoned Bezer. Bezer walked over with large strides, the smell of iron and blood coming from his body. The king frowned and asked, "Do you have any leads on the mole?" "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. I have found out who the mole is." After torture and interrogation, he finally confessed. They are indeed not from the Rothschild family, but as for who is supporting them, his rank is too low to know. Huaxia has an old saying that one will not cry until they see the coffin. He did not tell the complete truth, the king said seriously. "Your Majesty is wise, but this person is already dead." He knew that there was no hope for him to live, so he hurriedly explained some things and committed suicide, Bezer said regretfully. Damn, he actually committed suicide. The king was very angry. His royal guards were infiltrated by the enemy. Thinking about it made his back shiver. If he was suddenly shot, he would die without a doubt. Then, "Is there any news about the escaped enemy?" the king asked. "There is no news for now." Bezer saw that the king's face was not good, so he quickly added, "But we have a clue. The microbombs implanted in the brain are very rare, and there is only one seller on the international weapons black market. I have sent people to investigate, and there will be news soon." The king's face finally turned slightly better, and he urged, "Find the mastermind behind the scenes as soon as possible." Tang Jing, Mu Hongyan, Bruce, and a driver drove to the destination. The streets on both sides of the road quickly passed by, and a weak wind blew. Suddenly, Tang Jing's ears slightly trembled, and he shouted, "Hide!" Pong! He kicked open the car door, carried Mu Hongyan, and jumped out of the speeding car. Boom! With a loud bang, the car exploded and turned into a ball of flames. Tang Jing tightly held Mu Hongyan and asked, "Sister Mu Hongyan, how are you?" "I'm fine." Mu Hongyan's heart tightened, and she was scared. If she did not have Tang Jing with her today, she would not have been able to escape this disaster. Looking at the burning wreckage of the car, she could imagine what would have been waiting for her. On the other side, Bruce's face was bruised and swollen, and he struggled to get up from the ground. At the critical moment, he risked his life and finally jumped out of the car. He was ruthlessly thrown to the ground, and his old bones almost fell apart. But the driver was not so lucky, and he was buried in the explosion with the car. Tang Jing was furious. This was a woman who wanted to kill him, and no matter who it was, he would not let them go. He raised his eyes and looked around, vigilant of the rockets or bullets that could fly at any time. However, after waiting for a long time, there was nothing, only the screams of passers-by, and the sound of sirens could be heard in the distance. Damn it, they are so smart. They ran away when they couldn't hit the target. Tang Jing fiercely stamped his foot, and a large piece of the flagstone on the ground shattered. Bruce ran over in a panic and said, "What should we do now?" "Find the mastermind behind this, and let them pay a painful price." Tang Jing clenched his fists and said while gnashing his teeth. Bruce's heart trembled. He had never seen Tang Jing so angry, and he knew that things were going to be bad. Even Nicholas had fallen into his hands. Who was the one who didn't have eyes and actually dared to provoke him? Who has the best intelligence in Europe? Tang Jing was a foreign monk, and he was ready to find the local snake to find out. There are many countries in Europe, and each country has its own intelligence system. We also have. Before he finished, he was rudely interrupted by Tang Jing. "But your intelligence system is obviously useless. This kind of violent attack has happened in your country time and time again, and you have no clue at all." Facing Tang Jing's accusation, Bruce was speechless. Looking at his eyes that were about to spit fire, Bruce hesitated and said, "Actually, the Rothschild family is the most well-informed." Alex's family? Yes, they have existed in Europe for centuries. Moreover, they have spanned across the entire continent. This is something that a single country cannot compare to. Their intelligence system was established a few centuries ago. Now, it has become an indescribably huge net. Even the slightest movement of grass in the wind cannot escape their eyes. Bruce said somewhat bitterly. As a member of the royal family, he had to admit that an outsider's intelligence system was more perfect than their country's. This was a slap to his own face. Tang Jing secretly nodded. Bruce was right. It seemed that he had to meet the Rothschild family. "Let's go to Alex's castle." Tang Jing pulled Mu Hongyan and turned around to leave. Bruce was extremely anxious and quickly caught up. "Young Master Tang, young Master Alex has a grudge against you. If you go and beg him, he may not agree." Tang Jing smiled coldly. "Who said I'm going to beg him?" Bruce was suddenly startled and exclaimed, "Ah, you want to use force? That depends on whether he cooperates or not." Tang Jing said meaningfully. Bruce pulled a long face and lamented in his heart. This is getting bigger and bigger. If the Rothschild family is really involved, then the royal family will be attacked from both sides. Just thinking about it makes him tremble with fear. Tang Jing pulled Mu Hongyan and walked very quickly. Not long after, Bruce was left behind without a trace. The two arrived in front of the castle. The door was tightly shut. Mu Hongyan looked at the classical and magnificent castle and said, "If I had a castle like this, I would be satisfied. I'll give you a ride." Tang Jing said, "You don't have a castle?" Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily. "I don't, but the Rockefeller family's property definitely has a castle." Mu Hongyan recalled the information she had read. It was indeed so. She excitedly nodded. Good. But this castle is very good. You like this castle? Then let's buy it. This belongs to Alex's family. His family doesn't lack money. Why would they sell it? Mu Hongyin shook her head and said in disbelief. Seeing that she really liked this castle, Tang Zheng's heart moved. He domineeringly said, My woman, even if she likes the stars in the sky, I will find a way to pluck them and give them to her. It's just a castle. What's impossible about it? Mu Hongyin's eyes lit up. At this moment, she felt that no words of love in the world were better than these words. Although she was past the age of dreaming, these words inadvertently hit the softest part of her heart. She held onto Tang Zheng's hand even tighter. No wonder so many women are like moths to a flame. It's because your flame is too hot, Mu Hongyin sincerely said. Creak. A small window next to the door suddenly opened. A person appeared and asked the two who they were looking for. Alex. When the other side heard this name, his expression turned cold. He asked, Do you two have an appointment? No. Sorry, without an appointment, our young master will not receive guests. Pretentious. Tang Zheng lightly said these two words. With a tap of his foot, he soared into the air and lightly took a step in the air. Pung pung. He and Mu Hongyin landed in the courtyard. The guards at the gate were dumbstruck. They watched the two of them stride into the castle, not knowing what to do. A group of people suddenly rushed out of the castle. They looked at the two of them with vigilance and loudly shouted for them to stop. The two of them turned a deaf ear to them and continued forward. Immediately, these people rushed towards the two of them. Their attacks were layered and had a tacit understanding. However, their strength could not compare to Tang Zheng's. They were like ants trying to shake a big tree. They were all sent flying in all directions. The battle had ended before it even started. This scene was clearly seen by Alex, who was standing at the window on the second floor. Chapter 9:27. Alex had already inquired about the situation when Princess Anne was attacked yesterday. When he found out about Tang Zheng's heroic actions, he was still a little indignant, thinking that those mercenaries were too weak, so he took advantage of them. He wished that he was the one accompanying and at that time, so that the role of the hero saving the beauty would fall on his head. But at this moment, seeing Tang Zheng's skill, his heart couldn't help but beat wildly. This skill was almost on par with the Holy Knight at home. No, how can he be compared to the Holy Knight? He hurriedly shook his head, denying this absurd idea. But he didn't know that Tang Zheng had only displayed a portion of his strength to deal with his guards. Tang Zheng felt something and looked up, coincidentally meeting Alex's eyes. Alex subconsciously took a step back. This was because Tang Zheng's eyes were so sharp that even though they were separated by a window, they were still like a sharp sword. Let's go. Let's go up and meet Alex. Tang Zheng held Mu Hongyin's hand and walked in with large strides. Meeting Alex at the stairs, Alex didn't run away in a panic. This was his castle. If he ran away, then people would laugh their heads off. You have guts, actually daring to break into my house, Alex said with a gloomy face. But his eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyin's hands that were held together, and he shouted, I knew I wasn't wrong. That night it was the two of you, right? You lied to Anne. Mu Hongyin heard this and wanted to withdraw her hand, but Tang Zheng held on tightly. Since Alex had already broken through once, then he wasn't afraid of a second time. If you tell Anne, will she believe you? Tang Zheng asked indifferently. You. Alex's white cheeks immediately swelled red. You lied to her. One day, she will see through your true colors. Do you really like Anne that much? Tang Zheng asked. Of course. I've liked her since I was a teenager. I swore that I would definitely pursue her. I've already defeated many opponents, but I didn't expect that you would appear out of nowhere. Alex felt wronged. What if I tell you that I have no feelings for Anne at all? Tang Zheng asked. These were his heartfelt words. He already had enough women by his side. Although Anne was outstanding and had a noble status, he really didn't have any improper thoughts about her. Otherwise, with his charm and methods, he would have conquered Princess Anne's body and mind. What? No idea? Alex looked as if he had seen a ghost. No one had ever said such a thing. From the elderly to the children, everyone admired Princess, and this person actually said that he didn't have any feelings for her. Was he a fool? He didn't believe it. He sneered and said, "Do you think I'll let my guard down and let you take advantage of this situation?" Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He laughed involuntarily. "I don't care whether you believe it or not. I'm just stating my thoughts. I didn't come to Europe to fight with you for Anne. I'm not your enemy. But if you really treat me as an enemy, the one who will suffer in the end will definitely be you, not me." Haha, what a joke. This is Europe. Do you think it's that ancient and backward Huaxia? Alex laughed disdainfully. Tang Zheng shook his head. He turned to Mu Hongyin and said, "Some people are just stubborn. When I talk to him nicely, he thinks that I'm weak. Sigh, it's really troublesome." Looking at his playful appearance, Mu Hongyin couldn't help but laugh. She played along and asked, "Then what should we do?" That's why martial arts are very useful in many situations. Because it's more direct and doesn't need to waste time. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he grabbed with his hand and used the sky-swallowing technique. A powerful suction force gushed out from his palm. Alex screamed, "What are you doing?" Then, he was forced to fly towards Tang Zheng and was firmly caught by him. Although Alex was a member of the Rothschild family, he didn't practice any profound martial arts. He only knew some basic martial arts. How could he be compared to Tang Zheng? But he was quite knowledgeable. Looking at Tang Zheng's move, he was really shocked, because even a holy knight didn't have this kind of ability. Witchcraft? This is definitely witchcraft. He roared. Tang Zheng laughed. Who said it was witchcraft? If it's not witchcraft, then what is it? I think you're really a frog at the bottom of a well. I even suspect that you're a member of the Rothschild family. Louis of the Rockefeller family knows much more than you. Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed. Alex was stunned. He asked, "You know that despicable person, Louis?" "Oh, you also think he's a despicable person?" "Of course, he's the best at playing tricks. He's made me suffer quite a few times." Alex said bitterly, "With your methods, you'll only be at a disadvantage in front of him." Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. "What do you mean?" "No, how do you know Louis? Are you in cahoots with him? You should know that Louis is dead, right?" "Of course, I heard that he was killed by someone. It's really satisfying. If I meet this hero, I'll definitely thank him for his gentlemanly actions." Alex said, "Ha ha ha." Tang Zheng finally couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Alex was confused. "Don't laugh. Thank you for your praise. I can reluctantly accept the title of hero," Tang Zheng said enigmatically. Alex's eyes rolled a few times. He seemed to be thinking about the meaning of Tang Zheng's words. After a while, he reacted and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. "You're saying you killed Bruce?" Tang Zheng smiled and nodded. Alex was about to tell him to stop bragging, but seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, he swallowed his words back, because he was sure that the other party didn't seem to be bragging. Then his background was too big. He actually dared to kill Louis. "Who exactly are you?" Alex asked, still in shock. "A Huaxia person? Nonsense. When did Huaxia people have such guts?" "That's Louis. You killed him. Would the Rockefeller family let you go?" Alex retorted with a look of disbelief. "Who said they let me go?" "Nicholas personally brought people to kill me," Tang Zheng calmly said. Alex's eyes almost popped out. His heart jumped to his throat. He took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in his heart. "Liar. Nicholas wants to kill you. How can you stand in front of me in one piece? You've already died who knows how many times." Tang Zheng secretly sighed. Nicholas's name was indeed big in Europe. Even Alex was afraid of him. "Why don't you believe me when I tell you the truth?" "How can I believe your lies? I'm not a fool," Alex said with a look of self-confidence. "Who said you're not a fool? You don't even believe the truth. If you're not a fool, then what are you?" When Alex heard this, his cheeks turned red. His eyes were about to spit fire. Tang Zheng ignored his anger and said, "Nicholas came to kill me, but in the end, he also died in my hands." "Impossible. Impossible." Alex shook his head like a rattle drum, firmly denying it. "What's impossible?" How could you possibly kill Nikolai? That year, the 12 holy knights joined hands to resist him. Alex's worldview was about to collapse. The 12 holy knights were already very powerful in his heart. But without a doubt, Nicholas was even more powerful. Now that Tang Zheng said that Nicholas died in his hands, even if Alex was a little brainless, he still thought that it was impossible. Don't you know that Nicholas is already dead? Of course I know. But it's said that he died of a serious illness. Died of a serious illness? Are vampires afraid of getting sick? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. Alex's cheeks turned red. He understood vampires. It was said that they were immortal. How could they be afraid of getting sick? Could it be that Nicholas was really killed by him? Alex couldn't help but think, but he still couldn't accept this fact. Doesn't that mean he's more powerful than the 12 holy knights combined? Alex previously thought that Tang Zheng couldn't compare to the holy knights, but now it seemed that he was much more powerful than the holy knights. Alex's expression kept changing. He looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. The faint smile on Tang Zheng's face suddenly became unfathomable. He took a deep breath and said, "You caught me. Could it be that you want to kill me? The Rockefeller family is Rothschild's enemy. I helped you get rid of your enemy. Shouldn't you express your gratitude?" Tang Zheng asked. Alex said, "Logically speaking, I should thank you. But you deceived Anne. Don't expect me to thank you. It seems that you are really infatuated with Anne." "Of course." Alex raised his head proudly. Tang Zheng shook his head. "It's not that I want to discourage you. Although I don't have any thoughts about Anne, she has no thoughts about you. What's the use of you being so passionate? My sincerity will always move her." Alex was full of confidence. "I didn't come to you today to talk about these romantic matters. Your Rothschild family's intelligence is said to be the best in Europe, right?" Alex wasn't an idiot. He knew what she was trying to say and said, "You want to ask for information from my family? You're not too stupid." "Who said I'm stupid?" Alex was furious. He looked down at the hand that grabbed him and sneered. "You have a request, but you treat me like this. Do you think I will give you information? This is because you don't cooperate." Tang Zheng let go of his hand. Alex tidied up his clothes and said, "Based on what you did to Anne, I won't cooperate with you. Is that so? I didn't come to you to beg you. If you don't cooperate, I'm afraid you will suffer a lot. Moreover, I don't think you know the information. So take me to see your family." "You dare to go to my family? Why wouldn't I dare?" Tang Zheng shrugged. "Nicholas made your family suffer a lot. I don't think I'm weaker than Nicholas." Chapter 9:28. Who said I want to be your family's enemy? If you capture me and interrogate me for information, won't that make you my family's enemy? Alex retorted. "Can you represent your family?" "Of course." Alex answered with a guilty conscience. Tang Zheng declined to comment as he lightly smiled and said, "Bring me to your clan. There are no conditions to be discussed." Finished speaking, he grabbed Alex with his big hand. Alex screamed, but there was nothing he could do. "Go." Tang Zheng gave a low shout and walked out of the castle with large strides. The other guards wanted to stop him, but they could not get up. They could only watch as Tang Zheng grabbed their family's young master and left. Mu Hongyan's eyes were full of splendor. She was not afraid, but rather excited. "Young Master Tang, please show mercy." Bruce finally rushed over anxiously and stood in front of the three of them. "Young Master Tang, don't act recklessly." Seeing Tang Zheng grab Alex's collar, Bruce earnestly advised, "I'm not being reckless. But this." Bruce's face was ugly as he pointed at Tang Zheng's hand. "I'm asking him to cooperate with me and take me to visit the Rothschild family." "What? You want to visit the Rothschild family?" Bruce turned pale with fright. Even His Majesty the King would not easily get involved with the Rothschild family, because the other party was too mysterious. Putting himself in danger was not a wise move. Absolutely not. Bruce hurriedly used his body to block them and desperately shook his head. "Young Master Tang, listen to my advice. The Rothschild family is not an ordinary place. You absolutely cannot put yourself in danger." Tang Zheng was anxious to know the real culprit behind the scenes and said firmly, I won't go. Do you have a way to get them to tell me the information? This. I don't have that much power. But His Majesty can coordinate, Bruce said. Tang Zheng laughed secretly. His Majesty was already in a terrible fix because of the disappearance of the crystals. How could he have the time to think about these things? In the king's mind, the matter of the crystals was obviously more important than this matter. Bruce, go back and tell His Majesty that I'll be back soon. Don't worry. If I really don't come back, ask Tian Chanzi to come and find me. Tang Zheng's tone was relaxed, as if he was traveling. This made Alex want to vomit blood. Even the royal family was afraid of his family, but in Tang Zheng's eyes, his family was like a tourist attraction. He could enter and leave as he pleased. Tang Zheng did not take it seriously at all. He made up his mind and said, "Since you look down on my clan so much, I'll take you there. However, don't run away when the time comes." "Do you think I'll run away?" Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Alex was not sure. Thinking of what Tang Zheng had done to Louis and Nicholas, he felt even more guilty. "Well, since you've thought it through, then lead the way. Don't play tricks, or you'll be the one to suffer," Tang Zheng warned. Alex snorted and did not comment. He strode toward the parking lot and said, "If you have the guts, then get in the car with me." Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan did not hesitate to follow. Bruce was in a dilemma. He could not follow, but it seemed inappropriate not to follow. He was burning with anxiety. He angrily stomped his foot, turned around and walked away. He said to himself, "I must report to His Majesty immediately. Young Master Tang is too reckless. If he really has a conflict with the Rothschild family, it will be terrible." Alex drove, and the group of people rushed to their destination. The Rothschild family was not in Sweden. They had to cross the country's border and go north. After 2 days of unimpeded driving, they entered another small country. This small country was just a small dot on the map. It might not even be as big as a prefecture-level city in Huaxia. It was full of green, making people feel relaxed and happy. "My family is about to arrive. It's not too late to back out now," Alex said bitterly. In these 2 days, they had only taken a short rest. The rest of the time, Alex was driving. His mind and body had suffered a great deal. His eyes were bloodshot. He occasionally wanted to crash into a tree next to him. He wanted to destroy the car and perish together with the other party. "Concentrate on driving. You don't need to worry about anything else," Tang Zheng said lightly. This kind of long journey was a piece of cake for him. Even Mu Hongyan did not feel tired. She had tasted the taste of cultivation for the first time. Along the way, she was carefully comprehending the mysteries of cultivation. A majestic castle gradually appeared, and only when it was close enough did they get a full view of it. Compared to the previous castle, it was like the difference between an eagle and a chick. This castle was too magnificent. Although it could not be compared with the imperial city in Huaxia, it was definitely second to none in Europe. It was the largest and most magnificent castle. Just by looking at it from afar, a sense of grandeur and the vicissitudes of history hit them in the face. Mu Hongyan's eyes widened in surprise. The Rothschild family's heritage is really extraordinary. Alex raised his head high. His bloodshot eyes were full of pride. Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt danger lurking on both sides of the road. He remained calm and said without even looking, "Your family has so many people lying in ambush on both sides of the road. What's the use?" Alex's eyelids twitched. Tang Zheng did not even look, but he actually found the people lurking in the dark. He was too amazing. In the face of Tang Zheng's ridicule, Alex immediately retorted, "Nonsense. Whether it's nonsense or not, you'll see in a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, a white horse rushed out of the castle. This seemed to be a signal. Following closely behind, 11 white horses rushed out like a wisp of smoke. These 12 horses had pure white hair without a trace of impurities. They were like the champions of a horse beauty contest. The 12 people on the horses were all wearing thick armor and helmets with a metallic luster on their heads. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but without exception, they all had imposing appearances. Screech! The car suddenly braked, leaving a long tire mark on the ground. Alex almost hit his head on the steering wheel. His eyes were round as he stared at the 12 horsemen coming towards him as if he had seen a ghost. The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely and said, "The 12 holy knights are all out." Ever since the defeat of the Rockefeller family, the 12 holy knights had disappeared. Even if there was a real threat, there had never been a situation where the 12 holy knights were all out. This time, the 12 holy knights were all out. How could Alex not be shocked? He subconsciously turned his head to look at Tang Zheng. His lips opened and closed, but not a single word came out. Alex understood very well that since the family had sent out the 12 holy knights, it naturally meant that they already knew that Tang Zheng had the corresponding strength. In other words, what Tang Zheng said was true. Louis and Nicholas had died at his hands. Tang Zheng stared fixedly at the 12 holy knights and said with interest, "Your family is smarter than you. They didn't send 1 or 2 holy knights to deal with me. Instead, they sent out all of them." Tang Zheng opened the door and got out, standing in front of the car. Mu Hongyan also wanted to get out, but she was stopped by Tang Zheng with a wave of his hand. "You just watch from the car. No one can cross this line and hurt you." Mu Hongyan's eyes were full of spirit. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a faint smile as she stayed in the car as she was told. She took the lead, with the others half a step behind. The 12 holy knights stopped at the same time, as if they had been trained countless times. Tang Zheng stood steadily in the same place, raising his head to look at the 12 holy knights. "I know your intentions. You definitely want to fight, so I won't say much. Let's talk after the fight." Tang Zheng seemed to be deep in thought. Since the Rothschild family didn't come out and let the 12 holy knights come out together, it was naturally to further test his strength. Tang Zheng held War Soul in his hand and walked towards the other party step by step. He strolled leisurely, as if this wasn't a battlefield, but a park. The holy knight in the lead raised his sword. The wide and thick heavy sword shone coldly under the sunlight. Even under the scorching sun, it made people feel a soul-stirring murderous aura. The heavy sword, the armor, and the fierce horse formed a strange scenery under the sunlight. The holy knight in the lead raised the heavy sword in his hand and aimed it at Tang Zheng. With a shake of the reins, he charged forward as fast as lightning. At the same time, the other holy knights also charged together. Their heavy swords were all aimed at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suddenly accelerated, like a gust of wind. This time he chose to meet force with force. Puff, puff, puff. The 12 holy knights arrived one after another, layer upon layer, and slashed at Tang Zheng, who was on the ground. However, Tang Zheng disappeared. They looked up in shock and found that he had actually flown above their heads and slashed down with War Soul. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 12 rays of sword light fell from the sky, as if the sunlight was split apart by these 12 rays of sword light. Bang, bang, bang. 12 crisp sounds rang out. All the heavy swords were hit by these rays of sword light. 12 cracks appeared, then turned into 24, 36, and finally, there were more and more. Pa pa pa. The 12 holy knights shattered into pieces one after another. The holy knight looked at the heavy sword in his hand dumbfoundedly. He was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out from behind his helmet. With just one move, victory and defeat were decided. They never thought that someone could achieve this kind of power. They looked at the thin figure in shock and the sword in his hand that was suffused with light. Their heroic spirit could not help but disappear. Tang Zheng was also surprised at his own fighting strength. Yuanying realm was indeed extraordinary. An endless stream of true qi filled his body and mind, and then merged into War Soul. It was also the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, but its power was much higher than before. His fighting spirit was high, his eyes lit up, and he was ready to completely destroy the opponent's arrogance in one go. Thus, he floated in the air and raised War Soul once again. Suddenly, a strange yet familiar thought entered his mind. His arm subconsciously waved, and War Soul fell. Mighty, completely different sword chi slashed down with an earth-shattering force. Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique. The Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique that he had completely forgotten suddenly appeared out of thin air. Chapter 929. Tang Zheng had only learned 2 moves of the Taiji Yin Yang sword technique, and this time, he was using the first move. Although he was shocked, the War Soul sword had already slashed down. Pong, 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 with a series of explosions, the 12 holy knights fell from their horses and fell to the ground. Their heavy armor was scattered and turned into pieces. They revealed their true appearance. Except for the leader, who was an old man, the others were all young men. Tang Zheng was stunned. Except for the old man, the other holy knights were definitely not the ones who had attacked the Rockefeller family. Perhaps they were their descendants. These people climbed up from the ground in a sorry state and looked at Tang Zheng with a pale face. They were in a dilemma. If they fought, they would definitely not win. If they fled, that would be too shameful. Tang Zheng ignored them. He turned his head and walked towards the car door, reaching out his hand. He said, "Sister Mu, come down. The outcome has been decided." Mu Hongyan happily got off the car, as if she had won the battle. She looked at him passionately. If there were not so many people, she would have given him a kiss. Alex lay on the ground on the steering wheel and hit the horn hard, making an ear-piercing sound. He kept growling, "Impossible. This is not real." Although he was mentally prepared, he did not expect the 12 holy knights to be defeated so easily. Tang Zheng held Mu Hongyan and walked in front of the holy knights. The old man suddenly asked, "This is Hua Xia's magic? You are more knowledgeable than Alex." Tang Zheng nodded. "It is indeed powerful." The old man praised from the bottom of his heart. His eyes kept changing and finally sighed. "You are a guest. Please come this way. The family head has been waiting for a long time." Tang Zheng understood in his heart, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This was the same as his judgment. The 12 holy knights were testing his skills. If he was not the same as the rumors, then there was naturally no need to talk. He had proven his strength, so he was qualified to sit down and talk. He was not angry. Instead, he nodded slightly in agreement. Under the gazes of the holy knights, he followed the old man into the castle. A middle-aged man stood at the entrance to welcome them. He was the current head of the Rothschild family, Alex's father, Abraham. Abraham was tall and had a sharp gaze. There were a few wrinkles on his forehead, which made him look very dignified. Abraham saw the battle just now. His greatest reliance had been defeated so easily. One could imagine the storm in his heart. However, he did not panic. According to the information he received, the other party was not an enemy. They were here for information. Moreover, the King of Sweden's personal call had dispelled a lot of the hostility in his heart, but it was also reasonable to test Tang Zheng's strength. Of course, he knew Tang Zheng better than many people and knew that the Rockefeller family had actually fallen into his hands. Of course, he would not repeat the mistakes of the Rockefeller family. Only cooperation could lead to a win-win situation. This was his strategy. He first extended his hand, took a step forward, and shook hands with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was relieved. This was the same as what he had expected. This was a smart person. Not everyone in the world was an enemy. If a person really became the enemy of the whole world, no matter how strong they were, it would be difficult to escape the fate of being eliminated. He was beyond the reach of Europe and even the Atlantic Empire. He needed such a strong and smart partner. "Welcome," Abraham said briefly and powerfully. "Thank you." Tang Zheng nodded and said directly, "I need information." Abraham waved to his attendant, who came over with an exquisite gilded plate with a piece of paper on it. "The information you want is here." Tang Zheng nodded approvingly. This was a smart person. It was easy to deal with smart people. Tang Zheng opened the paper and immediately frowned. There was a long list of names on it. There was more than one, and they were all familiar names. He had seen these people before. "It's them?" "Yes, they were the ones who assassinated Princess and attacked you in business," Abraham said in an absolute tone. No one doubted the truth of his words. "So that's how it is." Tang Zheng suddenly realized. He gradually understood why these people were so deranged. These people were actually the European royal families who had cooperated with Tang Zheng. At that time, when they heard the news of Tang Zheng's death, they abandoned the spirit of the contract and tore up the cooperation contract. Now that he had overthrown the Rockefeller family and was coming in strong, they wanted to cut him off and frame the Rothschild family. They wanted Tang Zhang to become enemies with this family and then profit from it. It was really a good plan. They even led the flames of war to my family. Naturally, I will not stay out of it, Abraham said calmly, but the anger hidden in his words was very strong. Then what are you going to do? Let them know what the Rothschild family relied on to stand for hundreds of years on this continent, Abraham said confidently. Then what am I going to do? Please wait and see. This is a greeting gift for a distinguished guest who has come from afar. This greeting gift is not light. Then I will wait and see. Tang Zhang did not decline pretentiously. From now on, I will protect your interests on this continent. Absolutely no one will dare to touch it. Abraham continued to express his attitude. Tang Zhang's eyes slightly narrowed. The conditions provided by Abraham were so good that it was beyond his expectations. What are your conditions? Tang Zhang asked. There are no conditions, because the Rothschild family wants to be true friends with you, Abraham said sincerely. Alex caught up and just happened to hear this sentence. His mouth was wide open as he looked in disbelief at his father's humble attitude. I like to make friends the most. I have always been good to my friends. My enemies don't like this very much, Tang Zhang said. Abraham said firmly, the Rothschild family will never be your enemy. Then we will take our leave. Abraham still wanted to urge him to stay, but in the end he resisted. If he wanted to further communicate with Tang Zhang and even become true friends, his next move was the key. Only by making Tang Zhang satisfied could their friendship be maintained. I will send you off. No need. Tang Zhang threw the War Soul Sword into the air, and the War Soul Sword floated steadily in the air. He held Mu Hongyan's hand and leaped onto the sword. So, War Soul turned into a sword light and disappeared without a trace. This kind of ghostly method caused the minds of the people present to go blank. After a long while, they finally retracted their gazes from the direction where War Soul disappeared. Alex was originally questioning him, but he could not say a single word. His head hung low as if it was about to fall into the dust. The 12 paladins were even more dejected inside. They had always boasted of being strong, but now they realized how weak they were. Abraham became even more determined in his thoughts and muttered to himself, the ancestors of the family once warned us that we must never set foot in the mysterious eastern Huaxia. After so many years, many people have long forgotten this admonition. Rockefeller practiced this admonition and finally made many people remember this iron law again. In ancient times, Huaxia was worthy of being called the center of the world. All countries worshipped it, but in the past few hundred years, the country's strength had become weaker and weaker. It was even bullied by the powers, making people forget that it was a dragon that had been sleeping. Abraham knew that the dragon was finally about to wake up. The iron law of the ancestors was indeed correct. If they cooperated with this dragon, the Rothschild family would be able to reach a higher level. If they were to become enemies, they would definitely be destroyed. The Rockefeller family was the best proof. Alex, from now on, you are not allowed to pursue Princess and Abraham's gaze turned, and he gave his son an unquestionable order. Alex raised his head and asked indignantly, why? Tang Zhang has already made it clear that he is not interested in Anne. But Anne is interested in him. Can I pursue my own happiness? Alex was furious. Your happiness is not with Anne. Besides, after so many years, can't you recognize reality? Alex was speechless. Abraham ignored his son's grievances and said to the head of the paladins, action. The old man nodded and understood tacitly. Tang Zhang returned to the Swedish palace and suffered a lot of complaints from Princess Anne. Fortunately, His Majesty the King summoned him, and he was able to escape from Anne's nagging. His Majesty the King and Tang Zhang had a secret discussion for a long time. When he heard the reaction of the Rothschild family, he was shocked. This old family finally put down their pride and took the initiative to show goodwill to Tang Zhang. This showed the importance of Tang Zhang. He couldn't help but feel a little moved. If Anne really came together with him, wouldn't it be a good thing? If the Rothschild family had this opportunity, they would definitely not let it go. Why should he let it go? Many of the marriages of the royal family members were for benefits. Although His Majesty the King felt sorry for Anne, since this was her wish, why not share the benefits with his daughter's happiness? It was a blessing to have the best of both worlds. Moreover, the mastermind behind the scenes this time was actually the royal family of those countries, which made him feel even more pressure. These countries had secretly formed an alliance. If he didn't firmly hold onto the big tree of Tangjung, then his future days would definitely be difficult. Of course, he also blamed the disappearance of the crystal on the heads of these royal families, and his hostility towards them increased greatly. Immediately, the way he looked at Tangjung gradually became thought-provoking. Tangjung didn't notice the king's strange behavior. When he returned to his room and chased after him and stared at him with wide eyes, she said angrily, "Do you know that you were wrong this time?" Tangjung didn't think much of it. "What did I do wrong? You didn't care about your own safety and put yourself in danger. If this isn't wrong, then what is?" And stared at him stubbornly. "I don't think there will be any danger. What if there is? That's the Rothschild family, an existence that all the royal families in Europe are very afraid of. Aren't I fine now? Humph. All in all, this time I was worried to death. I'm very angry." And pouted, no different from a young girl in love. Chapter 9:30. Liking a person is a happy thing, but if the falling flower is in love with the heartless brook, then it will be torturous. In these few days, Anne understood her own feelings and confirmed that she liked Tangjung. Especially when she heard that he was in danger, she wanted to fly over to help him. She pleaded with her father many times, and His Majesty was forced to call Abraham many times. Now that she finally saw him come back safe and sound, she had mixed feelings. She pouted and looked at him with hidden bitterness. "I was so worried about you. You didn't even coax me and went to see my father," and complained. Although Tangjung was not interested in her, but she was a princess and cared about him so much. If he treated her coldly, it would be unreasonable. "Thank you, Anne." Anne's eyes suddenly lit up like a light and said, "Then how do you want to thank me? How do you want to thank me?" Tangjung blinked his eyes with a headache. "Can't you tell that I am just being polite? How can you take advantage of me like this?" And raised her head. "My father doesn't want me to go to Huaxia. You go and persuade him. I want to go back to Huaxia." "Why do you want to go back? You don't want to go to school again?" "I don't care," and acted spoiled like a little girl in love. After all, she was only 19 years old, and this was the first time she liked someone. Tangjung had a headache. She wanted to create an opportunity to get along with him. Wasn't this leading her astray? His Majesty has his own considerations. It is not good for me to interfere. Didn't you say that you want to thank me? Hong, you don't keep your promise at all. Tangjung did not know whether to laugh or cry and explained. This is your family's matter. It is not good for me to interfere. It is hard to leave your homeland. It is better for you to stay in your own country. I don't want to do it. I have already stayed here for 19 years. I want to go to the outside world and explore it. However, if you stay here, I will not leave." And slyly said, "I will not stay. Then I won't stay," and was extremely stubborn. The two of them stared at each other, unwilling to give in. "In any case, this is my only request. Since you promised me, then you must fulfill it. Otherwise, I will hate you for the rest of my life." Is it that exaggerated? Of course, women hold grudges, and I'm one of them. You're a princess. Shouldn't you be elegant and tolerant? This is the real me now, and said stubbornly. 2 days later, an explosive piece of news spread. The kings on the list had all changed hands and were forced to abdicate their thrones. This caused the world's politics to tremble like an earthquake. Everyone was stunned, not knowing what had happened. Tangjung understood that this was the work of the Rothschild family. Although he did not know how they did it, it was clear that they had great influence to make so many kings change owners at once. Tangjung couldn't help but rejoice. If he had insisted on going against the Rothschild family, although he wouldn't have failed, it would still be troublesome. He didn't have that much time to waste in Europe. All the obstacles disappeared. Mu Hongyan successfully took over the relevant industries, and Tangjing became a world-class superpower. Of course, the people in the country definitely didn't know. Only a few people knew that Rockefeller's industries had fallen into the hands of Tangjung. Tangjung didn't continue to pursue the matter. After all, it was impossible for him to really kill all those treacherous kings. Since they had lost their thrones, they had lost their most precious things. Naturally, they couldn't make any big waves. He had won this conflict. This series of events made His Majesty look at Tangjung in a new light, and he became more and more convinced of his idea. Mu Hongyan couldn't leave Europe for a while, but Tangjung couldn't delay any longer. However, he didn't leave her alone. He transferred a few witch tribe warriors from the country to protect her. Only then did he leave with peace of mind. During this time, the king finally couldn't help but want to persuade Tian Chanzi to stay, but he was rejected without hesitation. The king originally wanted Tian Chanzi to teach the royal cultivation method, but he couldn't bring himself to say this request after being rejected so rudely. Because he knew that he would definitely be rejected even if he brought it up, why bother? Seeing that the two of them were about to leave, the connection with them would definitely weaken. He was unwilling to give up, and finally made up his mind to let and accompany them back to Huaxia. This suggestion was out of everyone's expectations, but Annie was so excited that she almost jumped 3 feet into the air. She looked at Tangjung affectionately, mistakenly thinking that this was all because he was secretly pleading for her. The queen was quite dissatisfied with this decision, but after listening to the king's explanation, she could only choose to acquiesce. On the other hand, Tangjung rolled his eyes helplessly. He thought to himself, "Your Majesty, is there anyone who would throw their daughter away like this? It seems like she can't get married." Mu Hongyan secretly pulled Tangjung to the side and teased him. As a woman, she knew An's thoughts too well. She wasn't too jealous. Ever since she chose to accept Tangjung, she knew that all this was inevitable. She was the most open-minded of all the women. Perhaps it was related to her special experience that made her more mature and wise. With Tangjung's cultivation, it was almost impossible to monopolize him. She also didn't dare to have such extravagant hopes. Tangjung couldn't say anything, but he couldn't refuse An's infatuation. He thought to himself that he should just stay as far away from her as possible. However, when the two of them got on the plane, they realized how unrealistic this idea was, and was like a piece of candy, sticking to him closely. As for Tian Chanzi, he automatically became a third wheel and stayed far away from her. They didn't take a private plane back, and went to Huaxia as an ordinary person. However, the first-class cabin was still booked by the rich and imposing imperial family to prevent others from disturbing them, and lay beside Tangjung and said with a smile, "You swore that you wouldn't persuade my father, but you actually did it secretly. You really know how to surprise people." Tangjung rolled his eyes and said truthfully, "I didn't persuade him." "Humph, you're still quibbling now. Whatever, it's fine as long as I understand it in my heart. This time, I don't need to go to Huaxia. I want to follow you every day and integrate into your life." And made up her mind. Our relationship is developing so fast? I wasn't sure before, but now I'm sure that I like you. There are also other people who are eyeing you covetously. Of course I can't let my guard down." And said with a set of words. Tangjung shook his head and didn't say anything. Annie was determined to chase after him. This was something that would make many men elated, but he felt a great deal of pressure. This time when they went back, the others wouldn't be as easy to talk to as Mu Hongyan. He didn't know if it would lead to a war between these women. In such a big villa, he was afraid that there would be a fight every day. Just thinking about it made his heart tremble, and talked nonstop all the way, and Tangjung was a quiet listener. When the plane finally landed, he looked at the familiar sky of Beijing and let out a sigh of relief. The summer in Beijing was very hot, and people felt like they were being roasted by the sun. Some time ago, the storm in the imperial city had calmed down. Beijing was peaceful again, and people were rushing to make a living. After Tangjung and the other two returned to the villa, the girls were in high spirits, but the happiness didn't last long. Because An quietly moved her luggage from upstairs to the first floor next to Tangjung's. This action made everyone subconsciously stop what they were doing and look at her strangely. Seeing everyone looking at her and calmly explained, It's too tiring to climb up and down every day, so I live on the first floor. No one believed this lame excuse, and everyone looked at her and Tangjing a few more times. Tangjing looked down, as if saying it had nothing to do with him. But the girls couldn't think that it had nothing to do with them, especially Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang. During this period of time, the relationship between the two had advanced by leaps and bounds, as if they had formed some kind of alliance. They went out together and occasionally went shopping together. This was a situation that Tangjung had never expected. Yi Dingdang seemed to have changed into a different person, which made him puzzled. When it moved her luggage into the house, Tangjung was immediately surrounded by Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir. Wu and Lu Qingmei also wanted to surround him, but in the end, they restrained themselves. "What's going on?" Yi Dingdang asked straightforwardly. Tangjing innocently said, "How would I know?" "If you don't know, then who should know?" Yi Dingdang asked. "You went to her country and then came back. She moved next door to you. Isn't that obvious?" Tangjung pretended to be at a loss and shook his head. "Didn't she say that she didn't want to climb up and down? Is this reason sufficient?" Fang Shishir finally couldn't help but ask. Although she tolerated Tangjung, she couldn't remain indifferent when she saw that and had signs of getting involved. It was a simple question. Tangjung really wanted to bite the bullet and say that it was sufficient, but in the end, he didn't say it out loud. He bitterly smiled. "How would I know?" "Sure, isn't it obvious?" It must be because the two of them were alone abroad and sparks flew between them. Yi Dingdong's fiery personality was clearly displayed as she spoke without thinking. "Absolutely not." Tangjung hurriedly denied as he felt wronged. "Hung, it's clearly sophistry. Sure, we can't spoil him like this. Otherwise, who knows what he'll do in the future. We must guard against him," Yi Dingdang said. Fang Shishir hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Sure, why are you also like this?" Tangjung wanted to cry but had no tears. "Don't take your anger out on Shishir. This is your fault." Seeing Tangjung being besieged again and again, Lan Yu couldn't bear to watch any longer and said, "Maybe there's a misunderstanding. He's had a hard time, so let him rest first." Seeing Lan Yu say this, the two didn't pursue the matter any further. After all, they had to give their future mother-in-law face. Lan Yu kindly looked at Tangjung and said, "Little Zheng, you go rest first." Tangjung gratefully looked at her and hurriedly slipped back into his room and tidied up and came out, but she didn't see Tangjung's figure. She was about to knock on the door when Yi Dingdang rushed to stop her and asked, "Just what is your relationship with him?" and smiled and said, "I like him, so I want to pursue him." "What, you want to pursue him?" Everyone was shocked by her sonorous declaration of love. "What's wrong with that?" Annie asked. "Of course not." Fang Shishir, Yi Dingdang and Wu Du said at the same time. Lu Qingmei also said the same thing in her heart. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.